When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk, people.
Good evening, my fellow Jamaicans, wherever listening and watching from around the world and the Eastern Caribbean. This evening we're going to speak about the Marley Beach and other beaches around Jamaica. I have with me my good friend, Dr. Devon Taylor. He is the person who is fighting for the public beaches in Jamaica. Dr. Taylor, welcome to Make We Talk.
Give thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me, and greetings to all of your listeners.
And also viewers. I must say good afternoon to our viewers, or listeners rather. I think I'm live on Jam Talk Vibes Radio.
Okay.
Yes. Good afternoon to all those who are listening to this broadcast here. Dr. Taylor, I got a little press release from you pertaining to the Marley Beach goes to court. Access rights to the Marley Beach going to court.
Yes.
Tell us some more about this, sir.
Well, I mean, last year, October, a private developer, really created a very unsettling situation within the Marley Beach. And for your listeners, that beach is located right on the border of St. Thomas and St. Andrew, on the south side of Jamaica. And it encompasses a large stretch known as the Sugarloaf Mountains,
right,
which is one of the original sites of Rastafari Nyabingi settlement in the early 50s. And so the beach have a lot of cultural Rastafari heritage within that space. But a private developer bought more than 250 acres of land that encompasses the track that leads to the beach. And a Rastafari family who is now also in the Supreme Court, to protect his father's legacy in this space. There was an imminent danger of the track being closed off that would, lead to the beach. And so all the patrons of the fisher folks and the folks who were living in that space were in danger of losing their access rights to the beach and to their home that was located, in that space. You had to take that track to get there. So, we had to protest. We joined forces with the Rastafaris and with the beach patrons and the community to protect that access right. And so, we were able to stop the closure. And what we did in the process was to apply to the courts to get a legal protection, so the space will not be closed, because accessing the beach depends on land rights. You need to cross over land to get to the beach. So the owner of the property of beaches can close their boundaries, and then folks won't be able to cross over.
So let me ask you a question here, Dr. Taylor. The Marley Beach, it was just given the name Marley Beach. It wasn't owned by the Marley's family.
No, it's not owned by the Marley's family.
Okay. So obviously that piece of property was sold by the government to other people.
The property was sold. Now, who sold the property? That's a good question. But it's a private owner that controls it. What we know historically is that the lands were not really owned by the government. However, when lands are vacated for decades, then they go back to the government. In the government, I forgot what is the name of that department of the government that assumes those property.
The UDC.
Well, either it's not UDC that takes them over. There's when people estates or goes into into some form of receivership, they go into a special department in the government, and then the government could do what it sees fits. We're suspecting that those properties were in those estates, and then they were unloaded onto this private developer. So they were sold. And so the private developer was moving in. They said they were going to build a hotel, and as a result, they needed their properties. Now, the issue is that there have been Rastafari and other families living in that space since the 50s. And so they have acquired property rights just because, through what we call adverse possession. They've been there for more than 12 years, lived there for more than 30 years, 40 years. And so those property rights needed to be honored. And we had to move in to really protect not only access to the beach, but access to the lands.
So that piece of property now, the Bob Marley property, the beach there, it's not, let I rephrase it, it's not owned by the Marley's family. Let's give it name Bob Marley Beach.
And I could talk about how it came Bob Marley Beach later on if you're to your
Yes, I would love for that. But let us go to this first. We do not know who sold that property to the person who has it now.
Correct.
Okay. So your organization decided to take the government to court pertaining to the access to the beach. In other words, there is a law that I know of, because I'm from Negril, that you must have access to the beach. I have my good friend Wilfred Rattigan joining us now.
Yes, Mr. Rattigan, how you doing?
Yeah, still I get trouble, Good trouble.
Good trouble, as John Lewis said. Good trouble,
right? Yes. So I know for a fact that you should have access to the beach because my family has properties on the beachfront in Negril, and they have to give access to other people to the beach. The people who help to raise me in Negril has to give access to their property, Barbie Barn or wherever, to the beach. So how is it that these people who buy this property refuse to give people access to the beach?
So I want to kind of make some corrections to that.
Go ahead.
There are no laws in Jamaica that guarantees general rights of access to the beaches. The law that regulates the coast in Jamaica is called the Beach Control Act of 1956. And that legislation clearly states that no one have general rights of access to the beaches. So your family is pretty generous. And that is what we're looking for, that your family create an easement that allow the public to traverse your property to get to the beach. That is not, what the law says. The only way the law protects you in that case is that if you're using that track or roadway for a minimum of 20 years, then you qualify under the Prescription Act to continue to do so, but you have to go into the court to seek recognition of that right. So we do not have any coastal regulation that create conservation easement in a proactive way. Otherwise, we would not have a beach access problem in Jamaica and would be able to traverse over hotel lands, villa lands, UDC lands, commissioner of lands. We'll be able to just walk onto the beach. We can't do that because private property draws their wire fence and no one can cross over it. And so the threat in Bob Marley Beach, the threat in that Bull Bay area is that the private developer, would be able to exercise his property rights and fence his property, put a concrete wall up there, put security there, however he chooses to secure his boundaries, he has the right to do so. And then the public would have lost access to that space. And that is just what the law in Jamaica is. So in order to really protect access rights, you have to seek that protection through the courts. Now, of course, there are parts in the Beach Control Act that says the government of Jamaica, should do that for you and can do that for you. But the government of Jamaica does not proactively do that for its citizens. And so, a JABEM organization, we recognize that issue. And so we are doing it, whenever, a beach becomes under threat from access right, then we, approach the court with members from the community using this prescriptive act to secure those tracks and those roadways that leads to the beach. So the community and the individual who have been using them will be able to continue to do so. And that is the issue. And I should mention that it's not only the private property that is out there in Bull Bay, but part of the track runs over the Commissioner of Land's property. So the government own land in that space and private citizens own land in that space. And so that's why the court case lists the Commissioner of Land, which is the government, and it lists a Wolf Group Limited, which is that private entity. So it's two defendants that we have, challenging in the court to protect the access rights of Jamaicans.
Wilfred Rattigan, you have a question for him? Go ahead.
No, I don't have a question for the doc. Instead, I just want to amplify the points that he made, which is that the Prescription Act of 1882, I believe.
1832.
32? Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can establish that you've been using the property without any break over a 20-year period, then in court, then the court should grant you access to the beach. In other words, they'd actually tell the landowner that they have to provide you with access to it. So if they have a fence where you can't, they'd have to take it down and make arrangements for you to use the beach. What's surprising is that the government doesn't seem in a hurry to take action under the Beach Control Act, to which, as the doctor says, they can and they should, but no one has ever. I don't think the force isn't there. I think it's about time now that we start forcing the government and say, listen, and this is an issue that cuts across party lines, cuts across social status.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is an issue that all Jamaicans can agree on, except the ones who own the beaches, who own the structures on beachfront property, except those, and they're very, very few. So I think it's about time now that we start holding the government accountable and start making this. In fact, this is one of the issues that should be in the Constitution. It should be preserved in the Constitution that all Jamaicans will have unfettered general rights to the coastline, beaches, what you call forefront, they call it.
Yes.
Foreshore. The foreshore.
Right.
Yeah.
And give them that. That should be. Well, you know what? Let me ask you. Now that you mentioned that, Jeffrey, if I have a question, I have a question for you, Doc. Have you been in touch with the Constitutional Reform Committee in any way, shape, or form regarding this issue, to say this is a bedrock issue that should be captured in the Constitution?
Yeah, no, I have not. I mean, the outreach person had expressed interest in talking to us. And said that, JABEM, and its attorney, Dr. Goff, they would reach out. But we haven't since heard from them. But we should probably write them and wave a flag to let them know that we are here and that this issue, as you pointed out, needs to be, constitutionally protected. And it needs to be, because not only that beaches are, treasures of the island. All right, they are very important ecological spaces that are important in mitigating aspects of climate change. And so the safety of the country, is dependent upon how healthy our beaches are. And through commercialization, if you're a Negro man, Jeffrey, so you'll see, hotel comes in and they take down all the vegetation that sits on the beach and they put down sprawling hotel complexes. You see they rips out mangroves in Hanover. If you look what's going on in Trelawney right now, you could see that is a total, dumping up of wetlands, ripping down all that, rich forestry that sits on the coastline. And so what that is doing, that is actually changing the coastline, and it is opening up the coastline to more erosion, which now makes more issues for mitigating climate change as sea level rises and coming in more land and claiming more land. So there is that environmental issue that is happening. And so we need to be really cognizant that it's not only a space of recreation, it's not only a space for spiritual practices or for livelihood. It is very important for protecting the country itself because we're an island.
You know what amazes me? The churches use the beach to baptize their flocks.
Yes.
And you hear nothing from the umbrella group of churches. Another bunch of hypocrites. You hear nothing from the Jamaica Council of Churches. Another bunch of hypocrites. You hear nothing from any of the churches in this country. But when they want to go to join the people of the Vumvava and the Vumvavi for prayer breakfast, they go to the national, the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. But a thing to fight for the people of this country who must have access to beach. The church is silent. Kananapong.
So, let's use this opportunity to invite them in and come to the aid of the Jamaican people, that we need all hands on deck. As Mr. Rattigan says, this cuts across party line. It cuts across, many of our social divide. It's an issue that affects every Jamaicans, and we want every Jamaican on board. And it's not only the churches that are not visible in this fight. And I should make exemption for the fraternal order down there in Ocherius, led by Bishop Taylor, who is working very closely with the Bob Marley and the Little Duns River folks. He's very vocal with his fraternal order there in the Ocherius area, and they were very instrumental in reopening Little Duns River 12 years ago when it was closed. And he's on the front line again working. So there are exceptions, to that premise, and I give a lot of credit to Bishop Taylor and his team for coming on board. But we need all ones on board. We need entertainers on board. We need different civil groups on board. We need all that strength. And what we need most are for Jamaicans to really connect this issue, to understand access to beaches means access to land. You have to walk over land to get to beaches. And so if you have no right to traverse land, then you cannot get to the beaches. And that's why we are taking this private developer, the Wolf Group Limited, and the Jamaican government into the courts to say that the rights of the Jamaican people to walk over this land that they have been doing for more than 20 years need to be preserved. And in preservation of that access right, then we protect people accessing the beach. And this is not only for the folks that are in that Bull Bay region, it's for the wider cross-section of Jamaica, because once the track is protected, all Jamaicans can access this space.
Wilfred Rattigan?
Well, Doc, you and I, we've had this discussion before, and I'm just thinking, is this like the opening salvo of the is this the opening salvo of the drive to ensure that general access is granted to all Jamaicans? Or is this just like a one-off? I suspect that it's not a one-off, but what are your plans? What I'm just thinking, what are your plans to because the last time you and I talked, I think we named out, I don't know, like 15, 20 beaches that are in jeopardy.
Yes.
And yeah, so instead of, I was just wondering strategically, why is it that they didn't bring all of them under one umbrella as opposed to just doing this one and then moving to,
right.
next one?
So it is just the way how the Jamaican legal system is constructed. So the individual nature, why we have to proceed this way, and I'll share aspects of the strategy, is that the law specifically required that you need a minimum of 5 people,
right,
to protect a space, and those 5 people have to be, be able to demonstrate that they themselves have been using that space for a minimum of 20 years. And so a larger, push to bring in everything under one umbrella would not really, I guess, the law doesn't allow for that. So we have to take them on an individual basis. So we have Marley Bay in the court. We have this Marley Beach in the court. And we're looking at, a couple other locations, the Cooper's Pen, because that's really eminent. I mean, I spoke to one of the fisher folks, and the trap that they were using, that alternate, is now closed. So we have to, get ready to move there. That's up down in Trelawney, and the Little Duns River case. So we have to take them individually, but the strategy is evolving. And in another couple of weeks, we'll be able to say more as to where we are, as to the approach to deal with this in a larger context that will now encompasses a push to protect the entire space. It's a very difficult thing, but we are pulling all the legalese together now to look at how do we move forward with this.
Dr. Taylor, before that Wilfred come back in with his other question, it was brought to my attention a while ago. I got a phone call when we were on here, and it was brought to my attention that the beach in Negril, down by the Negril Community Center, and I need to get some clarification on this. It's alleged that the beach in Negril has a chain link fence, like when they put the slave them in a own chain. That's what I was being told just a while ago. Now I need to confirm that. But if that is so, Dr. Taylor, that means that the access to public beaches around this country is at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, we're losing them left, right, and center. I mean, because, we know why, right? There's a massive expansion in the tourism product in Jamaica. And the tourism product in Jamaica is the model is highly dependent upon beaches. And so the more hotels built is the more beach losses are. But it's alarming what you just raised about, the possibility of losing a beach in Negril. And if a chain link fence goes up, if a gate is locked, the community have to move pretty quickly. And why is that so? The court system tend to love to maintain like the last event. It doesn't look to say, okay, the community has been using this space for 20 years and they got shut out and they're going to go into the court and challenge this. So let's use what was the norm and open it back, let the community continue to use it, and then we'll deal with the result once the case has been adjudicated. They will keep it closed and you will not be able to get on there. And some of these cases can run for 2 years. So the moment you see any kind of encroachment as a citizen of the country, that you look like you're going to really lose that access right, you have to block it. Jabem stand ready. You could reach out to us and we will get an attorney to drag that in the court very quickly and prevent that closure. And then we let the matter runs through the court. You know what I mean? And, you know, which beach in Jamaica Jamaicans have not been using for 20 years?
Well, let me just say something here. I'm looking at the Prescription Act, right, of 1882. And it's interesting because the second provision talks about the effect of the 20-year enjoyment of easement. But then the fourth provision talks about the 20-year use by the public or any class of the public of the beach. So one is easement and one is using the beach. Now, the first one, the easement, that one applies to if you can show that you, right, or if you can show that you have been using that thing for 20 years,
right,
then you go to court and you get the court to sanction that. The other one is if you can show that you've been using, if you can show that anyone has been using the beach. So the question is, so what the prescription right basically says is that, yeah, everyone has the right to use the beach. But like you said, it's a matter of land rights, because now the question is, how do you get to the beach?
Yes.
Although people would argue that, well, the way you get to the beach is over land, right? So we have a easement there. But what to prove beach usage is easier than proving the easement. So because you can say, yeah, we've always used the beach. People have always used it, not you necessarily. Whereas with the easement, you have to show that you know, and it's kind of weird because when you read it, you think that it's saying the same thing, but when you look at the margin and it describes what the provision is talking about, one of them is clearly talking about the easement, meaning to traverse the land, and the other one is talking about using the beach. Once you traverse the land and you get to the beach, how do you overcome this?
You see, that's the challenge, right? So it's the evidence that you bring to the court, all right? So this is why a lot of the times we depend on the strength of fisher folks, because fisher folks will have license document that will kind of assign them to a particular beach. So that becomes very strong piece of data to use. Others we use our photograph evidence that shows, you know, landmarks that are within the space that was captured in your photograph. So that is important. We also like the affidavits from the older members in the community that will do affidavit that then submitted with the case that can, you know, vouch. We have like a 100-year-old person that lives, you know, within the space that, you know, will provide an affidavit. You know, how are you going to go against that? All right. You know, if you some of these beaches, sometimes individuals would apply for water usage on the beach, then, right? Fresh water. And they will have an NWC bill. Sometimes on these beaches, someone will bill like a little rum bar, all right? And then they'll get like a spirit license. You'll have someone who is operating a motorized boat and they will have a boat license. So these kind of documents you pull together and you bring into the court. And of course, you know, the tracks that goes on to these places, you will have to, you know, make pictures of the track that will show if you can capture that track, you know, and most of the cases we have those things. People come forward with a 20-year photograph that shows that track, you know, the roadway over which they traverse, you know, and so those are the evidence we pull together and then we take those into the court to show, because that's the easement part. You see, part of the trick too that some of these landowners use, they will come and they says, well, we gave you permission to use the track. And they will always find some guy that they try to slip, you know, $100,000 or $200,000 to say, come into the court and says, we gave permission to do so. And they have done that. They have done that. They have done that to Jamaicans by, you know, I mean, eliciting that kind of a scenario, and some people fall for it. Jeffrey, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Let me ask you this question, Dr. Taylor. So, for instance, saying the beaches in Negril. Let's say the public beach, you have access to the public beach. Is it that the only access you have to the public beach is within that confinement? You cannot walk the 7 Mile beach in Negril anymore? Is that the case? Is that what's going to happen now? Based on all of these people are selling out the lands. Government selling out this and giving the property owners the right that the black Congos, ourselves, don't have access to the beach that we're born and growing in. Because the fact of the matter is, when you have beaches like Negril, and I will forever say this, and I'll apologize to nobody for saying this, you have the Arthurs family that own beaches in Negril. You have the Reynolds family. You have other families that own beaches in Negril. And because of the high cost of taxes, some of them were forced to sell the property for little or nothing. So is it that we, their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, pretty soon will not be able to walk the 7 Mile beach that we grew up in? I remember as a boy growing up in Negril, I walked the 7 Mile beach, pick cocoa plum, pick grape, and nowadays there's no cocoa plum on the beach anymore, not even grape.
Yeah.
And we sit down in this country because in the name of politics, we're not saying anything about it. The question to you now, Dr. Taylor, are you seeing right now that pretty soon we won't have access to no beach at all in this country?
Well, if the trend continue, all right, we are going to lose most of the access. All right. And we're going to lose most of the access to some of the most pristine and beautiful spots along the coastline. Now, Jamaica is 493 miles around. And it is reported that we only have access to around 3 miles of that. Okay. So just think about that, you know. I mean, it's only 3 miles that the public Jamaica has. Most of the rest is locked behind private walls, and we cannot access it. Now, that is just, you know, blatant wrong. That is an abuse of a people. That is discriminatory to a people. Now, you talk about you walking along that 7 Mile, and I'll say to you, that the Beach Control Act in its interpretation, and this is written in what is called the Beach Access Management Policy that the government is looking forward to advance, does not accommodate you with what we'd call lateral movement along the beach. So the law never gives you that right to move up and down the beach. The law never gives you that right to traverse generally. And the law does not give you the right to swim, on that beach. Okay, so the Beach Control Act is a highly restrictive document, and it is time for it to go. It's colonial era, okay, and it needs to go completely. It's archaic. It consolidates all that power into one person who is the minister, and that minister, you know who is that minister right now?
The man who they call the prime minister of this country.
Absolutely.
Who has the pen? Can say no or yes. But absolutely. The pen we have, hold on there, you must talk the truth and speak out. The pen that Andrew Holness have is to sell off the beaches to his friends and cronies. And while poor people in this country, when the hardship take us, we used to go to the beach and sit down and relax and have the cool breeze coming into us, that we can relax and soothe our mind and we not go mad. But what is going on in this country now is that the Prime Minister refused to take action. Go ahead, Dr. Taylor, Mr. Rattigan.
Well, it was revealing the couple of weeks about during the budget debate that the Prime Minister himself says that Jamaicans must have access to their beaches, and that was without question. And I was looking the next day to see a order comes out that says, you know, access all easements over private property will be enacted within, you know, I don't know, 6 months. They're going to open up all accesses and people be running, jumping in the sea. All right. And it doesn't come. They said that they are going to table a legislation. All right. And they don't need that. They do not need to table a legislation. That can be an immediate fix to the issue right now. I mean, as you mentioned, by the stroke of a pen, you know, an order could be made. The power is enshrined within that act, and the head of that act, you know, I mean, is the prime minister, because the beaches are regulated by NEPA. You know, I mean, and NEPA sits in the office of the prime minister. So the power is with the minister, and that's the minister. And it wasn't done. All right. But there's, you see, this is when you have, you know, bad governance, okay, and bad legislation. You cannot have, you know, regulation of environmental works, environmental spaces, I mean, sits in economic spaces. You know, environmental needs to sit by itself, because that deals with the protection of the country's ecological heritage, that always have conflict with economic development, because economic development is like a hammer. It sees everything as a nail. And what environment need is not really management, it needs conservation. And beaches needs conservation, because it's very important to it's an island. It's very important, you know what I mean, to the health of the nation. So yes, the country is losing access to beaches. And it's a possibility where in a couple of decades, if we do not fix this, we're going to be landlocked and you won't be able to get to the beaches. That is the trend. And I can vouch for that because I grew up in Steertown, St. Anne. And I had access to really over a good 3-4 miles of beachfront. I get up and I just walk to it. And I have lost access to all of it. I have no more access. I cannot walk down to my childhood beach and get to it. And I can't walk 1 mile to the right and 1 mile to the left and get to a public beach. It does not exist.
Yes. Wilfred Rattigan?
You know, the more I read this Prescription Act, and by the way, the Beach Control Act refers to, I think, the Prescription Act.
It does.
It's kind of confusing, because in provision number 2, it says that you as a person must show a 20-year continued use of that easement before the courts will make it official that you shall continue to have use of it. But then in 4, let me just read 4 and tell me if you understand what I'm saying. It says, when any beach has been used by the public, right? Or any class of the public for fishing or for purposes incident to fishing or for bathing or recreation, and any road, track, or pathway passing over any land adjoining or adjacent to such beach has been used by the public or any class of the public as a means of access to such beach without interruption for the full period of 20 years, the public shall, subject to the provisions hereinafter contained, have the absolute and indefeasible right to use such beach, land, road, track, or pathway as aforesaid, unless it shall appear that the same was enjoyed by some consent or agreement, which the doctor talked about that. So it sounds to me like you're saying, one is saying, okay, you have to prove that you have been using this easement for 20 years. But then section 4 says, no, not just you. If you can show that the public has been using it, not only do you have access to the beach, but you have access over the land. Because it says, yes, it says passing over any land adjoining or adjacent to such beach. And it goes on to say, you have the right to use such beach. And here's the key: land, road, track, or pathway. That sounds like an easement to me.
It is.
I'm sure your lawyers are gonna be with this out.
Oh,
when is it tomorrow or today?
No, we had the first sitting today.
Okay.
All right. We are the first sitting today, but absolutely, that's what we whipped out. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. We pull it out and we say, well, watch out, look upon this. All of these conditions have been met. We
Right.
qualify for them. All right. And so, I mean, you know, it still costs money and it's still taking people away from their livelihood to come now and prove. I mean, the honesty is that you mentioned, let's mention Bob Marley Beach. Oh, I mean, decades and decades, Bob I used that space there because the elders pointed out, show said in mentor, Bongo Gabby. Okay, and that's when he used to roll. He used to live in a bull beer. All right, and Bob would be over 70 years right now. I mean, the government should have actually looked at that developer, look at that landowner, and look at itself and says, no, 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 no. This is embarrassing for us even to go into the court against those people to try to say, you have to prove to me that you did not get permission, you know, or you have to prove your 20 years to me. That is an assault on your own people. And that's just not right.
I'll let Wilfred Rattigan come back in. But if my memory serves me correctly, I remember hearing the Prime Minister speaking that they will not touch an inch of Bob Marley Beach. But of course, they can go to the parliament and lie to the people of the country. The same way they give away how much acres of land to the Chinese all in the name of highway. Prime beachfront lands in this country is given away to the Chinese. Is it that Jamaica is becoming an enclave of the Chinese Communist government? Or enclave of the Jeffrey shut your mouth, the Italian mafias? Go ahead.
So, and I know the statement that you're saying, all right, that the government says that they are not blocking any access or they're not giving away any land. And what our response has been, listen, that 200 and something acres of land that adjoins the Caribbean Sea is not owned by the government of Jamaica, or if it was, it is no longer owned. It's owned by a private entity. A private entity of all the right to fence his or her property or its property. So whether the government of Jamaica can make a statement like that, it doesn't own the land. So it can't prevent the landowner from fencing his property. And I ask you the question, look at all the hotels that sits on the North Coast. They fence their property. They build walls. The government was not able to tell them, don't build your walls and don't draw your fence. And they still build the wall and they still draw the fence and they lock the public out. So your property that directly adjoins the ocean is yours to do what you want to do. Just as though someone don't just open your gate and come inside your yard. If you buy an acre of land, you fence it around. And nobody can tell you that you can't fence your acre of land.
So in other words, that act that they have was in there from the 18th century and has never been amended to suit the Jamaican people then?
There was not what should have been done, right, is that all these easements should have been marked and recognized by the Commissioner of Lands. So when anybody purchases a piece of property that adjoins the ocean, that easement is automatically, preserved. And so the public would not have to go through this undue burden of finding an attorney, taking time off from their work, disrupt their entire livelihood to come into a court to prove that they have been using it for 20 years. Those easements should have been built in. And that is why we're asking for general and unfettered rights. General and unfettered rights to access our beaches, because that would now say in the Constitution of Jamaica, we have that general right. And so those easements would be preserved.
Will?
The mother's milk of politics is money, right? And power and influence. Now, given the fact that some of the nicest beaches are operated by hotel owners and they have basically made them. They've made the typical, the ordinary Jamaican unwelcome unless you want to pay like someone, come in, but you can't use the beach. You have to pay and come in and use the services, and then that would entitle you to use the beach.
Yes, sir.
Now, how I'm trying to wrap my head around it. How do you go about convincing the prime minister? Because again, the mother's milk of politics is money. And a lot of these people you will find, they contribute to his party, and not just his party, they contribute to the opposition party as well. So they contribute to politics, right? And the reason why I say that is because the PNP could have done this under their watch, and it wasn't done. So now, how do you get around that influence, that strong influence of money? How do you put pressure on a prime minister to say, listen, we know these people are going to finance you for your election, but we are telling you that you need to give us unfettered and general access to beaches, otherwise we're not going to vote for you. How do you get that message into his head?
Yeah. I mean, so the way I've been looking at this and the trend that we're seeing, all right, and this is not Jabem instigating this, but what you're witnessing is civil unrest is happening, right? So if you're thinking about the security of a nation, then you have to really be forward thinking that looks at these issues as a security concern, that if you really continue to let this problem of beach access restriction happen, you are going to promote civil unrest in your society, because it's going to reach a critical mass where the population is going to push back, and you're not going to like the end result. So it's a security concern that you need to be thinking about. You also have to think about the health of your country. That what does beach represent? Now, everyone is entitled to recreation. This is defined within many of the United Nations conventions, and beaches are important in that recreational argument. So you are also breaking aspects of laws that you're signatory to. All right. So if you think that this is where Jabem is going to use the full force of the law, if you fail to really honor those treaty obligations, it's also that under the law of every country on the earth, there are certain resources that you cannot own, and the beach is one of them. So who owns the beach? The beach is owned now by our monarch, King Charles. It's owned by the crown. Now, when we get rid of the monarch, of course, it'll be owned by the people of Jamaica. Now, you can't own something and then don't have access to it, right? Then you're going to end up into problems. So what I'm saying here, Will and Jeffrey, there is a bunch of things that are going to stack up like a domino, and when they fall down, the economic space is going to hurt, because right now over 40-50% of the Jamaica economy depends on tourism, and they're throwing everything in that bucket. If you want to protect the economy of the country, if you want to protect the health of the country, then you're going to have to start opening up these easements. Otherwise, we're going to have a domino effect of impact, maybe next year, maybe 10 years from now, that the entire economy is going to fall down because the people are going to push back, or the international laws is going to come down on you to say, open up these spaces, and then we're going to have problem. So the prime minister have to understand that by keeping these things in place, he's suppressing, he's discriminating against his own people on many levels, and it's only going to lead to unrest, and it's going to be a security concern in the country.
You know something, I'm going to let Wilfred Rattigan come in, but as it is quite ironic you talk about security concern, I remember growing up in the grill, and I know some friends of mine and my family who's watching me can say this is true. They used to have a thing they call a red hat. Some police, tourist police according to them, back in the 1990s, 80s, 90s coming up, especially the 1990s, when they go on the beach, and who used to go on the beach and sell their little seashell and conch shell and blow the conch shell and woo or whatever, and sell their coconut drops and everything like that. These people, these red hat police officers, decide that nobody, they're gonna beat a pregnant woman from the beach to downtown Negril. And when they beat the pregnant woman, you know what happened? It created mayhem in Negril town that night. They decided to burn the Negril Bridge with a Sandals staff bus. I will never forget it. The late Russell Hammonds. I pick up my phone and I call Russell. I say, Russell, Mr. Hammonds, mayhem going on in Negril. He drove all the way from Savlamar. They blocked the entrance at the gas station to come into Negril, the Negril Square. They used the bus and they blocked the Negril Bridge and lighted a fire. They went on top of the late hostess of Westmoreland supermarket, Jim Thompson, and they get back a bomb and they fling it in the middle of the town. When the Jamaica Fire Brigade came to out the fire, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And if that is what they want again, it's gonna happen. Because the people decide to listen to it. How on earth can it tell us that we can't go on the beach? So we're harassing the tourists and we're harassing this and we're harassing that. Now you are selling off the beaches. That we don't have any access to beaches anymore. As what you said, you rightly said, they're creating a security hazard in this country.
Absolutely. They are. They're creating it, they're creating it on several levels, from just relax and recreation that people needs, like my community, is seen as one of those community now with high level of crime and violence. And there's a lot of stress that we know recreation is very important towards. And it was never like that when I was growing up. There were spaces to vent, lots of green spaces. And these green spaces need to be preserved. For us, access to the rivers and beaches was brutal. And you shut down these avenues, you're creating those problems. And the other issue that you're creating too, if you notice, around many of these resort developments, there are many quote unquote, informal squatter settlements. And they grow and they thrive. And none of that money that's made in the hotel industry filters back into these communities and develop these communities. So you have these two different worlds that can ignite at any time. And so it's a breeding ground. These kind of economic policy of the haves and the have-nots, are not ever safe for the development of a nation. A nation needs to be equitable.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
I do apologize. Let me ask Wilfred Rattigan this question. As a former member of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, attorney at law, a Jamaican who stand up for the poor people in this country. And let me make something clear to the hierarchy of this government. Wilfred Rattigan don't want to become a commissioner of police. Let me make it clear. Wilfred Rattigan do not want to become commissioner of police under a corrupt system. So when you're talking to your friends and cronies, you know who me talking. That under your administration, you never give it, you don't want it. Let me ask you this question, Wilfred Rattigan. You're a former FBI agent and attorney at law. Based on what Dr. Taylor just said a while ago about security risk pertaining to not giving people access to the beach, do you see it happening? Do you see Jeffrey Tavares personally seen mayhem happening on the streets of Jamaica, Because if we continue putting the poor people back against the wall, they will rebel. And Jamaicans have a way of just sit down and accept it, you know. Apparently people in politics don't remember the 1990s gas riot. They don't remember how Jamaicans decide that enough is enough. So, Mr. Rattigan, you as a former FBI agent, what do you see based on both the beaches being not given access to the Jamaican people, the social and economic problem that we face in our country? Do you see wherein one of these days Jamaicans gonna start saying, well, it's true, to hell with whatever I don't know. The 14 parishes start burn same time, not even burn, burn.
Look, it's not far-fetched because of everything that's going on now. And I agree with the doc that you need some kind of recreation to release stress. I mean, we all know this. And so if you keep it pent up, people are gonna take some negative action. And it's quite likely that this could happen, especially given the activism of Jabem. And I think it's a windsurfers, is it?
Yes, the Jamaica Windsurfing Association have
Right.
joined in this. And we should spotlight that for a second here, or more, because Jamaica does not have a lot of beaches that allows for windsurfing. And the surfing on that Sugarloaf Mountain range that encompasses Bob Marley Beach is great. And so they use that to train the young surfers. And surfing is not just a recreational thing, it's a sport. And so it's a fully recognized sport. So if access is gone, it's also that the government of Jamaica is involved in killing a sport. All right, because you need those kind of conditions, to develop the sport. So they have come on board because they use that space a lot to train their young ones and to fine-tune their craft and do their thing. So the beach ecosystem is used by so many people for so many different things, and you cannot really not open this thing up and make it as democratic as an highway, as democratic as any public space. You have to make the beach ecosystem that much democratic. Access should be uninhibited. It should not be, we have to go into a court to litigate rights to beaches. That is madness. We're an island, 493 miles around. Why can't we have access to it? We're not against development. We are pro-development, but we are pro-sustainable development. And and so that needs to be taken into consideration. And no one with an easement rights is going to destroy other people's investment. It's not a country of hooligans. Where Jamaica is because of policies in Jamaica and bad governance in Jamaica. This is why Jamaica is in the state that it's in. It's not that there's an inherent genetic component to Jamaica's predisposition towards bad behavior. No, these are learned through systems that have been in place through bad governance over many decades in Jamaica. That's why we are.
No.
And it needs to change.
No, they have a saying that reigniting a nation. I think it's used by the government a lot.
Yes, that's what they use.
I don't like that reigniting business because what the doc is talking about is reigniting back to the 1870s Morant Bay Rebellion, and even before that with our ancestors,
which were all about land rights.
Right. So
they were about land rights, and I can't believe they can't get that in their head. That land rights. No, look at this. In 1865, all right, 1836, before emancipation, there was an order that came down from England that basically says to all of the governors of the colonies to affix prices on property, all right, so high that none of the descendants of enslaved African that were coming into freedom would be able to afford any property, and they should not really allow them to occupy any quote-unquote crown land. So what has been happening, or what has happened, is that we were a landless people. And we see that we're asking for reparation from Britain. We're thinking about moving to become a republic, and we're not in the same sentence discussing about the rights of the people to access their land and their ecological heritage. And that's one of the things that really I'm having a very difficult time with reconciling, I have to say. I'm having to reconcile that you're asking us to vote for Jamaica becoming a republic in a referendum, to remove the King of England, that we all think, it's due time. But to replace that with a ceremonial president, okay, and keep the same governance structure in place, that is going to further entrench all of these wrongs. And so the choice is very, very difficult for the Jamaican. It's between a rock and a hard place, that you can be held to the account that says, well, you voted not to leave Britain, so you wanted the monarch. Or you voted, for a dictatorial kind of system to continue. And we do not need to have those choices. That does not need to be our choices. We need to see a clear path of a governance structure that is going to take over from this monarchical structure, that is going to help to lay the framework for a really good governing country with checks and balances, with direct electability of a president that is executive, that is able now to create all those divisions within the structure of the government, that there's checks and balances. And in the same breath, we need to be mentioning that land rights is going to be important in how we move forward, because it's an issue of internal reparation. And I don't hear that on the table. I've not heard the progressive arguments on the table about how to restructure the country for better governance, because everybody in Jamaica would conclude that it is a highly corrupt society because of the governance structures that we have in place.
Will,
let me just say that,
before you go there, Will, you didn't answer the question that I asked you if you see.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm answering. No, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Where you talk about the violence, the
yes,
possibility. Yeah. And then I started talking about reigniting that. I didn't like that word because
that's what they use for the independent to what do you call it? Repeat it again. Igniting.
Reigniting.
Yeah, man. They don't ignite a fire from the grill point to Moran point.
Yeah. Well, you see, and that's why programs like this program is so important, because years before we didn't have anything like this. This is the age of technology and information, and things that the government could do that would be considered a public secret. People didn't care, people didn't know, even though it was in the public, people didn't care, people didn't know. But now we're making people, we're bringing information to people, and we're making them more aware. So it's not just we have a program, but we have a program and we're enlightening people. Yes, so the moment you start doing that, and then people start, because I can't begin to tell you how many people didn't know that your Jabem is out there fighting for unfettered general access to beaches for everyone, because they hadn't thought about that. They just figure that sandals, them own them things, we can't go, and that's it. I mean, no. So I can definitely see where information, education, enlightenment, I can see where all of those things can combine to coalesce the nation around this single issue. This single issue can actually bring the government down. The fact that if you tell them you either do it or we're going somewhere else. Yeah. Now, let me throw this out to you. We've all seen the fancy commercials, sandals, and you see really nice places, nice people, nice looking people, beautiful beaches, all kinds of stuff. What do you think would happen if we had a PR campaign using some of those same images and said, folks, before you come to Jamaica, think about the Jamaicans who cannot use the beach, right? And then you have articles in the New York Times saying, hey, the government has the opportunity and they have the ability to grant access to Jamaicans, but they haven't. And therefore, we have all these Europeans, North Americans who can come and enjoy our natural resource. And we, including people who live there, cannot do it. I mean, at least to some extent we can, because when we have to pay and go in and use a sandals. But you shouldn't have to pay to go in a sandals to use the beach, right? It's there for us. So what I'm thinking is that maybe we should start talking about a campaign to complement what Jabim is doing and say, listen, let's do a campaign with the New York Times, because most of the tourists going to Jamaica, they're from North America, they're from Canada, and they're from the US. And if we start getting the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other influential newspapers to start doing articles saying this is a shame, everybody should have access to the beaches. And then when they look and they say, well, wait a minute, they can do it in Barbados, they can do it in Grenada, they can do it here, they can do it there. And all of these countries we're talking about, they're in the same region. So why is Jamaica different? Why is it that Jamaica, and a lot of these countries we're talking about, they were, and some of them still are, under British colonial rule.
Like
So what makes Jamaica so different from the rest of them that Jamaica says you can't use the beach?
Yeah. You know, I mean, a couple of response there. So I like the PR campaign. I mean, it's funny that you're mentioning it, but I mean, we'll take some help in that department, but we are initiated. We have started that. Don't know if you saw that article that was in The Voice out of the UK. That is exactly what we started to discuss inside there. And what we're asking, folks in the diaspora, we're starting with our own people, that when you come to Jamaica, you should really ask a hotel, if they allow Jamaicans to access the beach by going over their property. And if they says no, then you says, well, this is not a hotel that I'm going to stay. And that was what that article that was in The Voice that says, we're asking for the diaspora help, because, we have done so when we were very instrumental in bringing down the apartheid system, because, it all depends on money, and you sanction them by sanctioning them where it hurts. Okay, so that is something, your timing is perfect. We are going there. One of the things I do, of course, I do own property in Jamaica, not on the beach, and my family lives there. And I go home and I don't stay at hotels. All right. And I'll tell people that I know sometimes, we come from our small village or inner city communities. There's a lot of Airbnb that you can use. I don't feel no way, man. You can go bounce it couple nights, on the couch. You will have a good time in your whole village. So go back in your village and spend the money, because the money that will stay in your village. And it's the shop where you go up a road, go buy the extra cup of pound of flour or rice, to make things nice. That money stays in your community. So it's very important. And it's a good experience to re-engage with your community and that levels. So that's direction we are moving into. But, why is Jamaica, beach coastal policy so, discriminatory and repressive? Why? And I think Jamaica Constitution was really written to really still control land. So
to oppress the people.
Yeah, man. Our Constitution was developed in that way. So when you look at the Beach Control Act, there's one section in there, I think it's section 4, that says if you own property that adjoins the ocean, then you have the right for yourself, your family, and your guests to continue to enjoy that space, to enjoy the beach, and to enjoy the foreshore that's right in that space. So it gives preferential rights to the property owner, but that adjoins the ocean. But those who don't had no rights. So you look at it, it was looking at property rights. So everything that to do with property rights that were in the hand of the wealthy, right, were kept in place. So those legislation that I see coming out of Jamaica was all about preserving colonialism, has, the society get elements of freedom, but was to still preserve those things in there. And so our Constitution was never one that meant to give an hand over land, which is the foundation of independence and freedom, to the people. And so everything was built around keeping that ownership in the space, of those few. And so that's why we evolve. And now what we see happening is that that law has now formed part of the economic framework of the country. So if we're pushing tourism as the major industry, all right, and tourism now is interwoven into the Beach Control Act, then it's become now part of the fabric of the economic engine. And so the government and the political connected elites now are controlled by that special interest and are now held, towards what they want. And so they're not moving to change the law because of corruption. The law corrupts the people through the economics and money. And that's the lens through which politicians sees, the country. And so it becomes entrenched in the system. So to do that, the governance structure need changes.
Well, let me just say, Doc, you're in control of your issue. You're absolutely correct. It's section 4, where it says any person who is the owner or occupier of any land adjoining any part of the foreshore, that's a beach, and any member of his family and any private guest of his shall be entitled to use that part of the beach adjoining his land for private domestic purposes. That is to say, for bathing, fishing, and other like forms of recreation, and as a means of access to the sea for such purposes. You're absolutely correct. But you mentioned a while ago, several minutes ago, that they were getting rid of the mangroves and the protected areas. And section 7 talks about what the minister can do. And we've talked about saying with the stroke of a pen, he can stop all of that. There's a section here in the Beach Control Act, section 7, it's entitled Protected Areas. And it's exactly what you described. The mangrove area around the water, close to the beach, where they're removing all of that and they're destroying the ecosystem. Here they can actually, the prime minister can actually go in and take care of it. But I'm telling you, a friend of mine just wrote to me and he said, look, no, you and the doctor know what will cause problems for them now, because I'm going to start talking about when I advertise overseas and say Jamaicans can't use the beach. So when you come home as a diaspora member, forget about it. If Jamaicans cannot just traverse the beach, laterally or otherwise, then that's a place where you shouldn't be. You boycott it. And then when you take it to another level and you get a New York Times doing an article like this, and then you get it in a travel magazine and say, hey, just think about it. We're not saying you shouldn't go, but just think about the poor people of Jamaica. This is their birthright, as you say in your title. This is their birthright. This is one of the natural resources of our country. Absolutely. This is something that cannot be sold, should not be sold. And so when you go there, think about it when you go. Think about the poor people who should be using this. Their forefathers fought for this country and died. And they can't use the beach.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
As you said, your forefathers fought for this country.
And foremothers too, because we can't leave out Nani and the ladies.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Because the Morant Bay Rebellion was led because of lands right in this country. The Morant Bay Rebellion, and make something clear tonight, that if they continue on this trend of what they're doing to the people of this country, I said it before and I'll say it again, Jamaicans will sit down and sup and sup and sup. But when their cup full and they cannot take it no more, they will rebel. I didn't say it. Marcus Garvey said that somebody had no roll down Duke Street, and I'm not turn for me. And I'm for Wilfred Rattigan. Now, Dr. Taylor, on selling out poor people land in this country, on selling out beaches in this country. Be careful what you're doing. In the 1990s gas riot, the 14 parishes light one time. It seems as if they forget it. It seems like termite and yam out them brain. They don't remember certain things in this country. And that is why they're arming the Jamaica Defense Force. That is why they're spending billions and billions of dollars on the Jamaica Defense Force. Because they expect an uprising in this country. You see all these high-rise building in this country going up? All this money laundering in high-rise building? The corruption of this country? Of this government? Continue. Continue. My grandmother always tell me, Pitney who won't hear on the backside will feel. I can behave myself tonight. Dr. Taylor, go ahead. Because the Vumvavan and the Vumvavi in this country. Taking poor people for fools in this country. And the time has come for Jamaicans to stand up. Stand up with a Dr. Taylor. Stand up with a Wilfred Rattigan. Stand up with a Jeffrey Tavares. Stand up with a Herb Nelson. The time has come, man, for us to rise up in this country. You don't want to see me talking about taking arms? If you ever take arms too. None of them get shot in our bottom because of what? You don't continue. You don't think we don't sit down and accept this nonsense going on in this country? We're not locking up our poor people in this country for how many days? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is about rights. And so historically, there is a law called the public trust doctrine that basically says that there are certain resources on the planet that cannot be owned, such as the air, water, all right? And beaches, the shore, you can't own them. And the fact that you cannot own them, they need to be placed in a trust for the people and for generations. And this has been recognized, I think, from the Byzantine Empire, from, we're talking about hundreds of years, okay? Thousands of years. Humanity never pulled a wire fence around the coast, because that was the window to the world. That is how you move around and explore. That's where, if you are an evolutionist, understand that's where life started. Understand that the ocean is 71% of the planet. Understand that most of the oxygen on this planet comes from the seas and the oceans. So that's not a space so you should restrict people from accessing, because it's integral for our survival. We need to learn and know more about it. And by learning and know more about it, we will protect it. It should not be a privileged space for just few. And that's what we're asking for the thinkers in our government, in our society. The learned man, the man who is building his business to be $1 billion business, who is steep in job creation, who is steep in all his fine accounting skills, in his construction, to understand that this is a space that needs to be democratic. And democracy, begs for us to open things to fairness, to be equitable and just. And that's what we say. We are promoting Jamaica as a democratic country, but the coast of Jamaica is not democratic. The coast of Jamaica is shut down. It is controlled. I mean, it is communist, if you will. It is a monopoly. And that is not in true spirit of democracy. And that's why we need to move away from that. So this is not an issue that needs to create divide amongst us. No one is telling anyone that you can't build an enterprise there. We'd like it to be sustainable done. And we'd like it not to be within 65 feet of the high water mark.
Continue talking. I have to do something. Let's continue talking, please.
Okay. We need to make sure that these spaces are open up. And that is the argument that the government should present to its people, figuring out a plan to say, we are going to move towards this kind of a policy. We're going to open up all the easement, let's say 100 feet apart, 200 feet apart, so you could walk onto the beach. You will have lateral movement, spaces to push you to can you out or your recreational boat out. There are going to be spaces that you can't touch because, you know, those are sensitive atri for turtles, nesting birds. There are spaces that we can't touch. We're going to build back the sand dunes. We're going to put back the natural vegetation in space because this is very important for climate mitigation. Bring the kids into the conversation that, you know, the importance of these ecosystems. And instead, what we do, sell all these properties off, pull these wire fences, destroy the space, build high-rise hotel, commercialize the space, build in the sea, and destroy the space and lock the population out. And that's nothing that is democratic. That's dictatorial. You know, that is really bad governance to do that. And it's not going to promote any goodwill in the society.
You know what? I was just, the more I read the Beach Control Act and the Prescription Act, the more I find something. Because in section 14 of the Beach Control Act, it references section 4 of the Prescription Act, where it talks about that any person or any group that's been using the beach, using the easement, the roadway, the tract, the pathway to get to a beach, and they've been using that beach for a period of 20 years, then they would have the right to continue using it. Now, that's section 4. We're not talking about section 1, because section 1 gives a person the right, whereas section 4 gives the public the right. And the public could be anybody. So you don't have to be the person that's been using it for 20 years. But if you can say, hey, you know, my grandfather, his father, and they span more than 20 years, they've been using it, then the 20-year period has been established.
Yes.
So now the Beach Control Act, it encapsulates that. It captures it in section 14. And here's what it says, because it's interesting, because Jabem shouldn't be filing this lawsuit.
I know where you're going.
No, Jabem shouldn't be, because here's who should be. It says, well, if you go back to section,
read it, because there's a functional word in it, you know. There's a functional word in it.
If you go back to section 10, right, which is entitled Establishment, Functions, Duties, and Powers of Authority. Section 10, subsection 1 said, there shall be established for the purposes of this act a body to be called the Beach Control Authority, right? Yes. Then you go to section 14 and it says, the authority may, upon receipt of a petition from not less than 5 persons.
Hold on.
May.
What? All right.
May. Yeah, it says may, right?
So that's the key word.
We have to force them, because they have what essentially they can do it. Then they don't. It's not a must, but they can do it.
They can do it. And you know the funny thing, what I learned recently, the famous Wilfred Beach in Portland went into the courts under Prescription Act because they tried to bulldoze them off the beach, knock down their sheds, and said they have to leave, and the community move quickly, get into the courts under this act, and invited NEPA into the conversation to help. NEPA took the case up because NEPA is the authority. So that Beach Control Authority no longer exists. It's fall under the NRCA. All right? Right? And the NRCA is the regulatory arm, but that NRCA reports into NEPA. So NEPA is the one that controls the space. NEPA took the case and then dropped the case.
Well, you see, no, that would be a cause for a writ of mandamus in the court to say we're going to force.
Well, talk to me about that.
Yeah, that would cause, because what happened is that you can ask for an administrative order, which is a declaratory judgment, which is you say to the court, Judge, we want you to just look at the facts and make a declaration that we're right. Right? And once you get that declaration, there are lots of things you can do with it. There's another one called the writ of mandamus. And what that is, you're now telling the judge, Tell them, the government agencies, government officials, that they have to, not may, they have to do it. Now, here's what it says. The authority may, upon receipt of a petition from not less than 5 persons concerned in any dispute with respect to the right to use any beach or any land, road, track, or pathway to gain access to such beach. And here's what it says, that the authority may lodge a complaint in the appropriate court pursuant to Section 9 of the Prescription Act, with a view to establishing such right, and the authority shall, for the purposes of that section, be deemed to be a person concerned in the dispute. So they should have taken this thing up. They should have. Jabem could have been like what they call like a friend of the court, like you could just hang around and just make sure everything is going well. But they and it says that the court would consider them, the authority, NEPA, whomever, as being a part of the dispute. So the question then is, why hasn't they done it?
Yes. And they have done it.
Why haven't they done it? Why haven't they done it?
Yeah. NEPA have done, I think they have done 1 or 2 cases in St. Elizabeth, in Treasure Beach, right? They have done some cases, but they are far and few, right? And what provokes them to do a case or not do a case? As you said, it says may, all right? And I think what NEPA does is consult with the minister, because all the power in the Beach Control Act sits with the minister. And I think that call is made by the minister over those many successful...
And also, sorry to cut you, also we must remind our viewers and listeners that the minister is the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Michael Andrew Holness. Continue, Dr. Taylor.
Is it Andrew Michael Holness? Well,
you know
that before you're going further, let me just go to quick focus on Section 2, right? And we asked the question, why haven't they done it, right?
Yeah.
It says not only do they put may in Section 2, said may, and Section 2 refers to subsection 4, the one that we talked about, that says that if you've been using the tract and if you're using the beaches, then you're fine, right? It says it's even worse, because here they add may, and then they add this phrase: if the authority, if they think it expedient to do. So if they think that, if they think that it's they may do it, but also if they feel like do it, if they think it's expedient to do it.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we make it expedient for them to do it?
Yeah.
How do we make it so that they must do it? And one of the ways I think we can is exactly what you're doing. You're bringing public attention to this thing. And I'm telling you, the PR thing would certainly grab their attention. If they start seeing negative press and they start seeing the tourist numbers dwindle, that would force them to do it.
Yeah. We have to do it. We have to take it to that space, because they have all the power in that document to, this should not be an issue in Jamaica.
True.
All right? It should never have been an issue. But the document is corrupt. This is why it needs a repeal and replacement. You cannot place so much power of controlling access to such a space that should be democratic, especially that you says the space is owned by the crown. And in all nations around the world, beaches are owned by the people, the government. So they are public spaces. And then you allow the control to be left to only one person that could say yes, no, maybe so. You can't do it. The act is old and corrupt, and it is the biggest driver of beach access loss. I know you're finding something else in there, but there's also let me try preempt you.
Preempt it.
There is something in there that says the decision by the minister is unchallengeable in court. Okay?
Yeah.
There's section in there that's
I know where it is.
That. So whatever the minister says, no court can challenge the minister. So if the minister decide that, you know what, that beach over there needs to be open up to the public, because it says the minister from time to time can, take lands. The minister can take lands, open up new beaches, and nobody can challenge.
So hold on there, Wilfred Rattigan. I'm gonna say what you have to say, but to hold on there, you're telling me that a prime minister, who's a minister, or any minister at all in any government has the right and the power to say, okay, I'm going to take that beach land from a Jeffrey Tavares or the Tavares family and do whatever he feels like to do with it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, the doc right on point. I mean, section 55
right.
appeals from the authority. It says here, the decision of the minister as to whether such license, it's a license, should be granted or refused, or as to whether an order should be disallowed or not, shall be final and shall not be questioned in any legal proceeding. So you're spot on. And that's section 55. But let me read you section 19, right, which complements it. So section 19 says, the minister may, after consultation with the chairman, give to the authority directions of a general or special character as to the policy to be followed in the exercise and performance of their powers, functions, and duties under this act in relation to matters appearing to him to concern the public interest. And the authority shall give effect to such directions. So, if we can convince them that this is in the public, and it shouldn't need any convincing.
You can't convince them, Rattigan. The law is in place since 1956. Okay,
right.
And it's a 493 miles around Jamaica, and Jamaicans have only 3 miles of access. We have seen a 500 to 1,000% increase in new construction on the North Coast. We're losing the access. The minister is not doing anything because the law is corrupt, because the ministers are corrupt. It's fundamentally, this is evidence we're talking about here. You know, we're not really saying this is data points. This is data points where if you can't have 493 miles and your population only have 3 miles of, that is irrefutable data, and that is data coming out of NEPA. It was just published in the New York Times that says, encountering another Jamaica. Search that article. Your audience need to go search for that article. That state that. Encountering another Jamaica. Okay?
So hold on there now.
Oh no, I rile me up in the evening still. You know.
Hold on there. No, because you're supposed to, and I'm not going anywhere, you know, stay with me. You're not going anywhere to see. We're going to talk some more. So hold on there. You're telling me right now, or maybe what we should be telling the people of our country is that elections soon come. Elections soon come, you know. And the young, beautiful girls of our country who love to wear their bikinis and their two-piece need to ride up and say, look here, we now vote for no. And I hope when the People's National Party gain state power, that they will go to the drawing board and put pen to paper and allow the people of this country, this rock that is ours, because we didn't come here by labor pain. We didn't come here by aeroplane. We came here by labor pain. We came here by labor pain, not by aeroplane, not party pain. Jamaica belongs to us and we need to take a stand. And I hope when the People's National Party come into power, they must give the people right and access to the beach. If this Prime Minister and this minister refuse to do it, because all they do is go in the House of Parliament and tell a whole bunch of lies, the both party do it. But of all of them, this one is the most lying and the most corrupt in the history of this country.
All right. All right. Why, Doc, you have me going. And you know, we like them on a program with somebody like you and Jeffrey because of no force me to do my research and force me to read. No, that thing that you mentioned a while ago, encountering another Jamaica. I'm going to just read to the audience, right? Because you know it. And Jeffrey probably knew it, but I'm going to read to the audience. I don't think I've read that one yet, Ratty. I just read you one section. It says, even many of the white sand beaches that foreign visitors enjoy are off limits to residents and are instead controlled by hotels and resorts, which limit access to their guests. Of the island's approximately 493 miles of coastline, less than 3 miles are designated as public beaches, and about half of those are used in association with hotels, according to a recent government policy paper. The public beaches that do exist are often run down and not fit for use. That exclusion is emblematic of what some locals feel is a continuing legacy of colonialism and the history of slavery on the island. It no get no better than that, or no worse than that.
No better than that.
Mr. Rattigan,
it's right there.
Can you read it again? For the people who are listening and watching from around the world and the Eastern Caribbean, read it again. And what newspaper article came out into? The New York Times?
I think it's the New York Times, yeah.
The New York Times.
I think
this is what they said about Jamaica and Jamaica's beaches. Read it again, Mr. Rattigan.
This thing it's mind-blowing. I mean, the paragraph before that is an indictment.
It is.
Here it says Nicole Dennis Benn, who wrote about the dark side of Jamaican tourism in her debut novel, Here Comes the Sun, explained that it can be hard for Jamaicans to start successful businesses. It's, quote, "It's really impossible if you don't come from wealth already. You're not going to find much ownership among the Jamaican working class," end of quote, she said. Now, here is the key piece. Even many of the white sand beaches that foreign visitors enjoy are off limits to residents and are instead controlled by hotels and resorts, which limit access to their guests. Of the island's approximately 493 miles of coastline, less than 3 miles are designated as public beaches, and about half of those are used in association with hotels, and that's according to a recent government policy paper. The public beaches that do exist are often run down and not fit for use. That exclusion is emblematic of what some locals feel is the continuing legacy of colonialism and the history of slavery on the island. I mean, that's an indictment.
My God.
I mean, so here's
wow.
The thing about it is that me wonder if it's because we get so much beaten in our life. You know what I mean? We have to live from hand to mouth. You know what I mean? Just keep our heads above the water and survive. That these kind of revelation, when they present themselves to us, does not make us scream. Okay, does not call for us to act. And so when Jabem comes out and says, we're not asking for anything radical here. Okay, what we're asking for is a correction of historical harm to a people that is in the hand of us to fix. This is not something that we're going to England to say, yo, you benefit from chattel slavery to build your entire society. Free labor from over 400 years to build your world. And so we want you to recognize through an apology, okay, and compensate us. We're saying that in Jamaica, who the Prime Minister of Jamaica and the Prime Ministers of Jamaica have been descendants of enslaved Africans. The leadership of the country, most are from descendants of enslaved Africans, controls the legislations of the country and can make this historical right that discriminates and hurt a people. They can make it right, and they have refused to do so. But they have the nerve to get up and says, I'm going to go to England and ask them for reparation when they are sitting over repression of their people. It riles the hell out of me every time I think about it.
This
not is madness.
It is not you alone, Dr. Taylor. I have always said in this program, they are going to England to ask the Queen and the King. The Queen dead now, God rest her soul. The King for an apology. Don't you see that something is fundamentally wrong with the governing of this country and the narrative of this country and the leadership? What they need to do, and before I say this, the two political parties need to apologize to the people of this country for the atrocities of the burning of the Eventide home, the atrocities of the Carl Garden killing of the Rastafarians, the atrocities of Tivoli Garden. the atrocities of the 1990s, the killing of our kids in Troy, or what they call it, Croy, what they want to call it. There's so much that they need to apologize to the people of this country for. I'm not saying they shouldn't ask the king for some apology, but the two political party has done so much damage to the people and to this country that they need to apologize to us, the people, before going to England and ask for apology. So it's not you alone, Dr. Taylor, that riles up when I hear this damn nonsense about going on Republic and this damn nonsense about, listen to me, I'm not saying we must go Republic, you know, but teach the people the meaning of Republic. Teach the people the meaning of constitutional reform. Don't jump down the people's throat with constitutional reform and go in Republic. Because majority of Jamaicans don't know the meaning of constitutional reform. Majority of Jamaicans have never seen the Constitution, much less to know what it means.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely, that what we're talking about here is fixing, you know what I mean, the legislative fracturing in the country that can really lead to good governance. And all of these historical problems around land rights and access rights, you know what I mean, freedom of a people. I mean, if we're truly going to be born as a nation, these are the conversations that I need the Constitutional Committee to come forward with, to say, along with really moving into a republic status, we're going to make these historical correction, okay, in parallel, not getting rid of this and then we're going to do A and B and C in phases. We can deal with this together because we are capable as a people to do it. And so we need to be really alert. And that is, you know, Jabem is just the messenger here, ringing this alarm to say, here is an issue around land rights. Here is an issue that requires reparative justice that is easy to fix because the people who are in charge of these legislations are our brothers and sisters, and they can do it, and they refuse to do so. Because the policy that they're looking to come with, I have read it. Okay? It says some good things in it, but one thing that it does not say, that Jamaicans are going to get general rights of access. It says something about ordinary rights or qualified rights, which again is another restriction on rights. It's crazy.
Yes.
And this qualified rights did not originate in the JLP. It originated from 2000, a document that has been stringing along. This policy that they're trying to put into place has been in the work since 2000 or in the late 1990s.
I think it's in the late 1990s, you know. A paper was brought to Parliament, tabled in Parliament, but it has not been passed in Parliament.
No, it's remained some kind of white paper, and it cannot go into effect. And it's like 23, 25 years later, and they're still trying to do it. You know why it cannot be done? It cannot be done because the private sector, okay, that money still colonial class, okay, have taken over this space and are monopolizing the space and are using it to create wealth. So now the wealth of the land from the sugar cane plantations, okay, which are no longer there, turning into housing development. Now the wealth, the new gold in Jamaica is beaches, the creation of all these commercial hotel enterprise, very valuable spaces. And that's the new gold in Jamaica that is controlled by the neo-colonialists who controls the government of Jamaica. And so they can't act. So successive administration have come, sold off prime real estate land all along the North Coast, all around Jamaica. They have done it. And they're now controlling the government. They fund them. And the legislation cannot pass because the big bad hotel industry says, no way, you're not going to dip in my money. Keep it as it is. The one way it's going to change is through the people advocacy. Okay.
You know, I'm going to ask Wilfred Rattigan to come in. But, Will, before you come in, remember what you're going to say, you know. But you say before you come in, read that thing again for me.
Yeah, it's sad, man.
It is very sad.
Yeah, it says.
And then let the people know where you're reading it from.
It's from the New York Times. It's dated March 9th, 2023. It's recent.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking it's probably something like a few years ago, but it's March 9, 2023. And it says here, it's the title of it is Encountering Another Jamaica. And it's, let me see where it's New York Times Travel on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All right. But and it's written by a tourist. And who went all over the place. Because I'm looking at the
shame.
The footage.
What a shame and disgrace.
Yeah, it says okay, here it is. Even many of the white sand beaches that foreign visitors enjoy are off limits to residents and are instead controlled by hotels and resorts, which limit access to their guests. Of the island's approximately 493 miles of coastline, less than 3 miles are designated as public beaches, and about half of those are used in association with hotels. And that's according to a recent government policy paper. The public beaches that do exist are often run down and not fit for use. That exclusion is emblematic of what some locals feel is a continuing legacy of colonialism and the history of slavery on the island. Sad, but found something else. And let me just tie this in. Okay, now is a very dear friend of ours, Jeffrey. One of our most favorite listeners.
Yes.
And also keeps us in check with a whole bunch of research material. Now, if you guys remember, Anthony Bourdain, he traveled to Jamaica on several occasions, but I think it was his last trip. When
I remember him, yes.
Right. And he had that interview with the guy who managed Bob Marley, the guy who built that resort out in Portland. What's his name?
Chris Blackwell?
Chris Blackwell, right. Yeah. Jamaica being a paradise, right? We all talk about that. And here's what Anthony Bourdain said, quote, "Who owns paradise after all? Who in the end gets to own paradise, use paradise, or even visit it? That's a question that's probably worth paying attention to before there's none left at all." And this was 2014, and this was when people were complaining to him. Now keep that in mind and listen to what I'm going to read you from the same article, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a tourist now writing about their visit to Jamaica. The tourist says, stepping out, is talking to other tourists.
Right.
Says, stepping out of your comfort zone is a must. Taking the easy options will not lead you to the communities that will really benefit from the money that tourism can bring. What they're saying is don't go to the resorts. They're saying, again, here it is. It says taking the easy options, and they're talking about a resort, will not lead you to the communities that will really benefit from the money that tourism can bring. It's on us as tourists to seek them out. These are the other communities, to seek them out, move within them with an awareness of our relative privileges, and remember the human stories behind their businesses. There are deep sacrifices that some working class Jamaicans have made to try and bring a new type of tourism to the surface.
You know, before you answer, Dr. Taylor, you know, that article is speaking of the people, and I will go back to my hometown, Negril. The people of Negril, and I will call names because they don't mind me calling names.
Call name.
The Authors, the Reynolds,
more name.
Samuels,
more. The
Lawrences.
Keep going.
And I can go on and on.
No.
Start the tourism industry in Negril.
No, keep going. Jamaica. You don't have nobody name on and on. Keep going.
You know, some of the names miss me now, Mr. Rattigan.
Okay.
But I can call more names, but they miss me now. Who start the tourism sector in Negril when hippies come to Negril to get the great ganja. That's why they must legalize the herb and let poor man who started the ganja industry in Jamaica, in Orange Hill, Mount Airy, legalize the herb, but the herb is for another topic. The people who started tourism in Negril, if you go on the western strip of Negril now, the businesses are closed. Because of what? The all-inclusive hotels. Because of what? Politicians don't give a kahuna about the people who start the bread and butter. All they think about, don't go to those small hotels, because you'll get harassed and you'll get this and you'll get that. That is why. Go ahead, Ratty.
You know what, Jeff? I'm sorry, Doc, for interrupt. But let me just say that, I mean, I just want to thank you immensely for bringing this article to my attention because it's recent,
yes,
and it's deep. And I'm telling you, this could be the death knell for tourism as we know it. If we start spreading this, along with the messages that we have, jab them, and we go through the Prescription Act and the Beach Control Act, and talk about the powers that exist within those two documents, that if the government wanted to, they could end all of this nonsense tomorrow if they wanted to. And then this affects Jamaicans from all walks of life. This is something that we can coalesce, we can unite around and force the government to do. But this article, if we get these articles, if we get this article and articles like this published all over the North America and Europe, Jamaica is in serious problem.
We need to run it. We need to get it out there. You know what I mean?
I know a lot of people gonna say we're trying to bring down our country. We're not bringing down the country,
No, we make it better for everybody. That's what we're trying to do.
Better. This is fundamental.
Absolutely no way in any modern democracy that the people don't have access and the right to the beach. In which modern democracy this nonsense can happen more than in Jamaica?
No, with this, the changes in the approach here will make the country stronger, okay? Because it is about democratization of the economics. It is about reparation, okay? So reparation is healing, all right? That is what it represents. It represents, you love it, right? Come here.
Listen to this. It says closer to Mel's. That's the establishment. Bluefields Beach provided all the white sand and azure, temperate water you could wish for, along with the knowledge that it is one of the few beaches on the island that explicitly remains open for locals.
But
it's looked after by the Bluefields People's Community Association, which promotes sustainable social and economic development. With towels spread out under a tree, we sipped strong rum cocktails and played with local children in the water. We were guests, but we were accepted. This nonsense about people are fearful and they're going to kill you. And hear that? We were guests, but we were accepted.
Yes.
And how the hell can you have a Bluefields Beach? Them say it is one of the few that explicitly remains open for locals.
But let me tell you something. I want to make a point around Bluefields and around Blue Lagoon. Do you know that, was it a year ago or a year and a half ago? And you should look it up online. A developer that is right next to Bluefields is trying to take a piece of the Bluefield Beach.
No,
I'm aware of it.
And that is now in the Savalamar court.
Yes.
Under prescription now.
Oh, man.
Okay? All right? So that is, no place is sacred in Jamaica as free. And it is not because it's not legally binding. You see, once this legislation don't give you general and unfettered rights, Ratty, Jeffrey, once the legislative piece is not in place, then you're not protected because the Coastal Management Act, the Beach Control Act of 1956 does not give you that legal protection.
True.
Okay, and so the space And the property around Bluefields is actually owned by the government of Jamaica, who can divest it, who can sell it, because they have done so for Puerto Rico, they have done so for Fort Lawrence, they have taken over, I mean, look at Duns River, they have taken over Little Duns River, okay? So the government owns the land, and the government can sell and divest the land. So until we have a legislative framework that legally gives Jamaican that rights, nothing is safe. You see the Blue Lagoon? All the lands around the Blue Lagoon, over 200 acres of land, the government of Jamaica does not own any on paper. So when you look at the land titles around here, it's all privately owned. And yet still they made the lagoon into a national monument.
But they have the roads though. They have the road, the one road from the main.
One parochial road that leads down there. But you cannot protect such a ecological sensitive space by not owning the lands around it. And so they shut the lagoon down, and it's supposed to open June 1st. We're learning that they're asking, you know, the Portland Environmental Action and JABEM to give them another 2 weeks, because, you know, they've found some other solution that they got the bathrooms that were behind the walls there. They're going to open up those bathrooms to the public and give the public some more space. And we've been saying to the government, there is what is called the Land Acquisition Act, that the government can go in and says, well, in the public's interest, all these lands are important and we want them. And they can do it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, everything that we're talking about right now, the government of Jamaica can change it all in the interest.
Hey, with the $750 million loan that they took from the World Bank and IDB and the other one,
IMF and all of that.
IMF, that they didn't give to the poor people. Yeah. They should repurpose some of those funds and buy the lands around some of these sites.
They don't need to buy them. They don't need to buy them. And it's a colonial-era legislation, the Land Acquisition Act of 1947. Give the government of Jamaica the right to take any land in the interest of the public.
So we need to do that. They need to do that.
We play the card. We said, do it. We said, they came to us and says, the reason why we could not open back the Blue Lagoon is because we needed a space to build toilets and sanitary convenience and put an operational office. But we don't own any lands around here. So it's proven to be a problem. And I said to them, well, use the Land Acquisition Act.
Yeah, and take the land. It's like eminent domain.
It's like eminent domain.
Right. The government can come in and take the land. Yeah.
And they haven't done so.
Is it that those lands are around the Blue Lagoon?
We know what you're going to ask, you know. We know what you're going to ask.
It's owned by a person of the Vumvavan and the Vumvavi who don't travel the roads of Jamaica. Them baga in a helicopter. And land a tower in a New Kingston.
Yeah, give it the man.
Listen, I mean, it was Wayne Lonesome who jump on him computer and jump in the registrar of companies office, you know, and jump, you know, in the land office with his account and pull names out. That
we saw the names.
Own the lands around the Blue Lagoon. But so there are the Vumvavas and the Vumvavis.
Yeah, his brother is the secretary for the organization that owns most of some of the lands, at least around there.
And somebody within the parliament own land around it too.
You step on somebody too now.
Your back brother than my one, you know. They already write Jabem's attorney. You know, I mean, some of the Vumvavas and the Vumvavis, you know what I mean? And it's saying that we don't need to call their name up there, so they're going to drag us up in court. So we are treading here a very careful line.
We never call nobody's name.
Right? So we know what they presume as a threat, which is not a threat. This is where they're irrational. This is where they're unfair.
Look.
Okay, none of this is a threat to them.
Doc, listen, it is a threat to them. And when they tell you that, you know, be careful how you call up names. These things, like what Lonesome pulled up, it's called public record.
Yes.
Yep.
Public record. You know, so I'm not worried about them. You know, I'm not worried about them. But job him, I know, job him. You try to do the right thing and you don't want to get distracted having to deal with something else.
But they're worried about you, Mr. Rattigan. Hold on a minute. Sorry to cut you. They're worried about him and Mr. Taylor, Dr. Taylor. They're worried about Rattigan, you know. Because today a question was asked. Jeffrey, shut your mouth tonight, boy. Like I behave myself.
I was actually watching it live when they asked when the question was asked, and here is the interesting thing about it.
I was gonna touch it. I was gonna touch on that when Dr. Taylor finished, you know.
No.
So wait till Dr. Taylor finished when we can get this sweet sauce of it, no man.
No, you can continue. I mean, you know, we're driving home the point that this will make the country stronger because we're promoting you know, equity. We're promoting equality. And these kind of policy are driver of democracy. You know what I mean? And if the interest is fairness, so that all Jamaicans can realize their true potential, diversification of ownership, diversification of the economy, then these are going to be good, sound policies to pull into play. And so we need to do that to the spaces, and all these spaces, all the beach ecosystem, the rivers, they need to be open up to the people of the country. And that is only fair. Does not need to be controlled by the few and seen as the new exclusive economic zone at the expense of the ecological heritage of the country, transferring all that wealth into the moneyed class in this 2023. After 400 years, okay, after the slave free labor that we have provided, our own people who are in charge of these policies, these regulations, are keeping them in place. It cannot be right. And I don't know how with a straight face they can look at us and say that this is good sound policy. That discrimination is good sound policy. Marginalization is good sound policy. When, as you pointed out, Barbados, Aruba, Bahamas, Cayman, none of these countries practice an apartheid-like tourism model that is in Jamaica. And their product does very well. It is something about the colorism in Jamaica. It's something about all of these, you know, pieces of coloniality that we have never removed from our system. And we allow to control our psyche. That is driving a lot of unrest in our society because Jamaicans view our country as highly corrupt, and corruption will breed crime and violence. Okay, and to get away from that, we need to start doing the equitable things. And I'm speaking here directly to both political parties in Jamaica who have grabs onto the reign of power and is squeezing the neck of Jamaican with these archaic policies. If you truly believe in democracy, if you truly believe in freedom and rights, then you would free the beaches and you would use reparative justice to hand back the land to the people and protect Jamaica. Because these policies are bad. They're bad. They truly discriminate against the Jamaican people. And a Jabem will not stand by and allow that to happen. So whatever it takes for us to drag you to any international court in this on this planet, we will do so. Mark my word. Because this is not right. This cannot stand no litmus test of true justice to the Jamaican people. It's immoral.
We're gonna, Dr. Taylor, don't go anywhere. Wilfred Rattigan, your final words on the whole beach issue. Then we're gonna switch gear. We're gonna draw some gear of Spurtree Hill now. Wilfred Rattigan is here tonight. We're not draw some gear of Spurtree Hill.
No, it's very simple. The Beach Control Act, as archaic as it is, as discriminatory as it is, it has the wiggle room in there for this prime minister, any prime minister, with the stroke of a pen, just to consult with whether it's NEPA or whomever, and just say, listen, and the phrase used is in the public interest. And the only way they will realize that there's a public interest, the public have to get up and start yell and shout out. Them say, if somebody tap on you to a ball out because people won't know. And once you start doing that, you're going to force the prime minister to take decisive action. Well, no, you're going to force him to think about decisive action. The question is whether or not he will take it, because remember, to a large degree, the party is funded by the owners of some of these establishments. And then you start, this is an aside. You look at some of the benefits that some of these hotel owners get, the concessions that they get, that you as an ordinary Jamaican try to start a business, ask them for concessions. Ask the government for concessions and see if you get any. And then what they tell you, oh, this is providing jobs. What kind of jobs? Mid upper level management, they bring in their own people.
Yeah.
They bring in their own people. Jamaicans are the ones doing the manual labor, cleaning making the beds, cleaning the toilets, doing this, doing that. So I just hope that this program will amplify the need for Jamaicans to rise up and let their voices be heard by the government so that the appropriate action can be taken and unfettered and general access to all beaches in Jamaica will be granted.
Thank you very much. We're going to switch gear now. Dr. Taylor, you're going to stay with us?
No, I'm going to go.
All right, Dr. Taylor, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man.
Don't be a stranger now. Thank you for enlightening us. Thank you for enlightening us about pertaining to the Marley Beach and other beaches around our country. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Yeah, a pleasure. Happy to be here.
Take care, brethren. We talk soon.
Yeah, man. Blessed.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, all the best.
Cool. Take care.
You too. We're going to switch gear this evening to what happened this morning at a press conference. I have the gentleman here with me.
You don't have the press conference, huh?
I have it. I'm going to play it.
No, not the excerpt, but the thing.
The entire press conference?
Not the entire thing, just that segment of it.
I'm going to play that segment. I'm going to play a segment of a press conference this morning. That was a question was asked by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And Nestor Morgan, the Minister of Misinformation, didn't want the minister to answer the question. Here we go. You see, this country of ours is something else, Let us go to this press conference here.
Morning again, Minister. My question is for Minister Johnson Smith. It is in relation, insofar as the donations from corporate entities in relation to the Fin Partners payment. I wondered, one, if the acceptance of gift form was completed as is required by law, and two, whether or not those funds were deposited in the government's accounts.
Can I stop you before you go any further?
As appropriation in it.
A gentleman has brought a matter before the courts in relation to everything that you just asked a while ago. It would be highly inappropriate for the government at a post-cabinet press briefing to comment on a matter that is currently before the courts. So I must apologize, but we cannot, in good order, offer any comments whatsoever on that matter which is before the courts.
Wilfred Rattigan.
No, what I should ask you to do, if it's not asking too much, is, well, fine, because we can talk about it. Before that question was asked, a question was posed to the minister about an issue that's not an issue that doesn't reside within her ministry. She saw it fit to start answering it, and then she started telling the questioner, and by extension everybody who was listening, that I'm not the one to really talk about this issue, but I'll talk about it anyway. And then if you need further clarification, then you need to talk to this minister, somebody else. What the questioner, the one who asked the questions about the gifts and whether the money was put into the expenditure fund, whatever, he should have said, follow-up question, the minister just talked about something of which she has no full knowledge. Here I'm asking about something about her that she has full knowledge. Not only that, the minister is an attorney. So you said, look, she can answer. Let the minister answer. If she wants to tell us that she doesn't want to answer the question, then that's fine, because you don't know. You don't know. And the question was a very simple question. Did you comply with the regulations and file for the gifts? And whether the money came into the government coffers? Two simple questions. She may not know the answer to the first one, to the second one, but the first one, she definitely knows the answer to, because that's a requirement upon her. But the questioner, I guess, I don't know if it was intimidation or he felt like, okay, I'm not going to push it, or whether he felt that it was in his best interest if he wanted to be invited again to the press briefing. I don't know, but he didn't follow up, but he should have followed up. I don't know why he would, even if the minister had said it herself, it would have made more sense to have the minister say, look, this matter is before the court, and so I'm not at liberty to discuss it any further. We will wait until our court date, and then we will present our answers then. But we would want to hear that from the minister, because she's standing right there, and she's not an idiot. She's an accomplished woman. She's an accomplished attorney. Let her speak, because who knows what she would have said.
Yes.
But he jumped in and he just said, well, no, I'm not going to let you finish that question, and I'm not going to let her answer the question. So,
what is your take on that?
My take on that is, look, it's perfectly within the minister's right. When I say minister, I'm talking about the accused minister, not talking about Minister Morgan. It's perfectly within her right to say, I don't want to talk about it. That's fine. But at least we need to hear those words coming out of her mouth. My take on it, and I'm thinking now like, I'm not thinking like a lawyer. I'm thinking like a regular Jamaican who say, if it not go so, it nearly go so. And the thing about it is that you'd say, well, all she had to do is say, yes, I filed. Right? And that would be the end of that. Yeah. If she said, no, I didn't file, then more questions would be asked. Like, why didn't you file? Did you know you should have filed? When do you plan to file? Questions like those. If she had said, no, I didn't file. But if she truly filed, I believe she would have said,
Let me answer the question.
Yeah, she would have said, I file. And she would have said, listen, to be expedient about this, yes, I did file, and you'll hear more about it on the 29th. That's it.
Simple. But you know something, Wilfred Rattigan? I think I think these people are quiddling their shoes, if there's such a word, of that lawsuit that you did. And because you have said it on your program on Reggae Global Radio, you've said it on my program, you said it in our good friend Wayne Lonesome program, and Andre Stevenson program, that there is more lawsuit coming.
Yes.
And I think they're trying to figure out what is they coming up with.
Well, let me just draw me out. Draw me out. There is one that's been worked on as we speak, and it's a major lawsuit, and it's against the highest elements of the Jamaican government, and it will be. I'm not the one responsible for this one, but it's coming out. I've seen the how do you describe it?
The documents and everything.
I've seen the documents, and now it's been combined into one document. But I've seen it, and so Jamaican government, hang tight. Something is coming your way real soon, and it's not just one. It's several. And by the way, I met with the gentleman today, and regarding the One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation. And we've made major advances in terms of composing the document, and now we will be refining the document within the next couple of days. So pretty soon that will be on board. Now, see, now that foundation would be able to finance something like what Jabim needs, like a PR campaign, right? You know, so they put something up on CNN, talk about come to Sanders and come to this and come to that. We put something up saying, yeah, you can go, but look at what expense.
Yes.
Look at what expense that the people who born, raised, this is their birthright, they cannot use it. And basically you're shaming the tourists and saying, you know, go elsewhere. And the reason for that is we are willing to affect the tourist industry in order so that the Jamaican population can have access to something that's their birthright. We're willing to do that. And that's a small price. The government, it should be a no-brainer. The government should say, okay, you know what? Yes, this is something that all Jamaicans should enjoy, right? Look, we enjoy the fresh air, the breeze, the sunshine. Why can't we enjoy the beaches? We enjoy those for free. Why can't we enjoy this for free? It should be a God-given right, and it should be enshrined in the Constitution, saying that every Jamaican has a right, unfettered right, general right to use all beaches in Jamaica. There's no such thing as a private beach. So the foundation, these are the kinds of things that we would fund. And I think that we're going to groundswell of support from Jamaicans from all walks of life.
Indeed.
Because this cuts across, like we've said, it cuts across party line, you know, status line, residential lines. It cuts across everything. This is something that I would say 99.99% of Jamaica would want. So yes, there you go.
You know, but before we go any further, Mr. Rattigan, I must say good night to my auntie from Canada who is watching us, and she loves this program and other programs, but she said she loved Mr. Rattigan. The time Mr. Rattigan he speak his mind. And I must say good night to my auntie who is in the chat room. Good night to you, auntie. Love you. Thank you for coming on. You know, there is something that we need to speak about in this country. That I'm going to switch it from what happened today. Yes, auntie, we were speaking about the beaches in Negril. That people need to have access to the beach. You grew up in Negril, and you know you used to run up and down to the beach in Negril. And now we can't do it because they're selling off all the beaches around the country. Wilfred Rattigan, you're aware of a video circulating. Take off your former retired FBI hat and take off your attorney hat. You're a Jamaican citizen now. I'm going to play a clipping. I know you have seen the clipping, and I know other people have seen the clipping, but I'm going to play a clipping by a man who is a minister of government in this country, who went into Portland and disrespected a Jamaican citizen. Listen to this, Mr. Rattigan, and give me your views on it.
No! It's a government of Jamaica tour. Yes, what have you? You tour with the parish council. So I am following. No, you don't follow my tour. I'm going to tour with, this is the political tour. Right, and it's a government, so I want to know what is happening. Caretakers that recognize, hold on, caretakers that recognize citizen of Jamaica. Then I want to know what is happening. You hear me? Caretakers are not recognized in the Constitution of Jamaica. I don't know about caretaker. I'm a citizen of this country. Well, and I have interest in this. Keep your interest to yourself. No. And your yard. No. Don't come on my tour. Don't come on my tour. May I share my interest? I don't want to do here. I'm here with the member of parliament. No. Well, I am here. You see the council with me? I am here. Bring a tour with council. Tour with the mayor. I am here. All right, tour with the mayor. I am here. So wait, who invited you? Only drink, talk, and slide when you invite you. Well, guess what? You know who you invite. So if you invite me as well, you invite me. Drink, and fly. When was that? I don't throw it out of the caretakers, regardless of party. Regardless of party. I don't differentiate parties, you know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't different parties,
I
sir.
don't know what you're talking about parties. I'm a citizen of this
No,
country.
I'm the member of parliament.
And I am
If you
following.
need information, ask sir.
And I will ask her when the time.
Right. I don't throw it out of the caretakers.
So who's the councillor here?
So you,
I am the councillor here.
yes,
I'm the NP aspirant
that's fine.
for this board.
No worries.
Right. I'm the NP aspirant for this board.
Close
Close your eyes then.
What?
Close your eyes.
wants to make you
Close your eyes if you don't want to see.
Who wants to make you call you?
I am here.
Now tell me something now. A sitting member of parliament and a minister of government says that, all right? I wish I had prepared myself because I didn't know, I wasn't sure you're going to come on, so I didn't prepare myself for this. Said that. And I'm not going to condole with what happened at the PNP headquarters where somebody was shouting about I will rape you or something of the sort. But the current Minister of Misinformation, Robert Morgan, went into the Parliament of Jamaica and said that he condemned what happened at the PNP headquarters. And until now, I personally send a message to the Prime Minister of Jamaica and said to him, the time has come for you all to speak to Everald Warmington pertaining to his behavior in the Parliament and outside of the Parliament. And it is a bunch of hypocrisy that you all going to speak about the PNP and don't speak about what is going on in your camp. They don't answer me until now. In the same breath, Darrell Vaz went to Portland and hung up what Everald Warmington said. The question I want to ask you, Mr. Rattigan, as a Jamaican citizen, if you see ministers like that going around doing disrespecting people like that, would you vote for them?
Well, let me just say,
the party who refuse the Prime Minister of Jamaica, along with the hierarchy of the Labour Party, Robert Bobby Montague, Dr. Harris Chang, and others refuse to come out publicly and condemn what Everald Warmington did?
well, we shouldn't be too surprised by what the Prime Minister didn't do, because what we've seen over the years is a pattern and practice of him not condemning despicable behavior committed by members of his government. So I'm not too surprised that he hasn't spoken out about it. It's troubling, but it's not unsurprising. Now, regarding what I just saw, I can't speak to what you mentioned, something about someone saying that they're going to rape someone.
Yes,
and you mentioned something about, the Minister Darrell Vaz, like condoning what
right
Mr. Warmington said. I don't know about those two situations. I have to look into it further, but I can speak about what I just saw. And what I just saw was a situation that could have been handled a lot better. Very simply put, if Minister Warmington didn't want this man to be in his motorcade or in his, didn't want him to be a traveling companion, very easily he could have just simply took him to the side and said, listen, here's what we're going to do. I need to show the minister certain things, and if you would, can I just lag behind and let me just do what I need to do and just get it over and done with? And then you can ask me questions, you can ask her questions and whatever, but we just need to do this privately and quickly. I think if he had had a conversation with that gentleman, it would have gone a long way in terms of diffusing that situation, or in fact, not even having that situation happen. There is something about decorum. And what we've seen in Jamaica, we've seen a devolution in decorum. Devolution in the sense that people don't aspire to be good citizens. And that's one of the reasons why we need to bring civics back into the classroom. Because not only will we know more about our government, our history, but we'll also know how to be better Jamaicans, how to be better people, how to interact with people on a level that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And what we saw there was a despicable.
Yes.
And when you start using derogatory terms, in your exchange with a member of our society, a Jamaican, it befuddles the mind as to why he would say that, why he would go there. And you would hope that, and by the way, it's my understanding that this is not the first time displayed this type of behavior. It's not the first time. And apparently he's been doing it. And I mean, I'm not condemning the person, because I don't know Mr. Warmington or Minister Warmington. I've never met him. I'm saying that there's a problem with his actions. Not talking about the person now, right? Because I don't know him well enough to say, well, he's a bad person. All I can say is that his behavior was despicable. And we've seen instances of this before. Now you can draw your conclusions from that to say, well, if him do it over this, and him do it, yes, and do it, yes, so then he miss this and miss that. I won't go that far. All I'll say is that what we saw there was despicable. And the Prime Minister should take a stand. He should take a stand. And because look, people learn from example. Right? They see somebody else do it. And so when you look at your minister, now you have some people look out there and say, boy, yeah, you saw my minister, body him up. And
that's what is going on right now.
Yeah, that's not the idea you want to convey.
The gutter politics.
Convey. When you say, boy, you saw my minister, hungry him up and oh, my minister not TikTok, and that's not, and that's why we are where we are as a society, because we have strayed from the path. We no longer can disagree without being disagreeable. When we disagree, it must be a deep division these days. It must be where you actually you just hate the person and hate everything the person stands for. And we have to do a course correction. We must, because if this is an example of what leadership is about,
you know, a corner dark in this country.
God help us. God help us.
And you know,
look, I can understand you want to be forceful about a policy, your policy. You want to be forceful about your party, your government. I can understand that. But there's a certain line that you shouldn't cross. You know, there is proper decorum as to how you interact and you engage with people. And when somebody crosses that line, we have to speak out. We can't be silent, because when you silent, you actually give them the consent and the power to do it again. Somebody has to bring this man, and that somebody must be
the Prime Minister.
Yeah, maybe his family members. I don't know what whose family members are, but they have to say, listen, you can't do this. And they may say to him, look, you're a nice man, you're an agreeable person, you're an outstanding father, you're a great husband. I don't know his personal situation, but what they can say is that his actions, they can say your actions are not becoming of a leader. They're not becoming of a politician. They don't set an example for children to follow. In fact, yeah, they do set an example, a bad example, and we don't want that. So, I mean, it is what it is, but a story like this should not die. Like all the stories coming out, they should not die a journalistic death.
And you know the funniest thing? I am not saying that they should not, because the gentleman of the People's National Party, I know you cannot speak on it because you haven't gotten the audio, and I haven't had it here with me. I hope I can find it here now. But you know the funniest thing, Wilfred Rattigan, is that the media houses in Jamaica do not take up Warmington behavior like how they take up the behavior of somebody shouting to a journalist at the PNP headquarters that may rape you, to that effect. I'm not saying that they shouldn't force, they can call out a man to resign. Of course he should be resigned. And that they should fine whosoever said it. But also, the media houses in Jamaica should have programs 24/7, like what happened program 24/7 about what happened at the PNP headquarters. About every Warmington dirty, nasty, gutter behavior. You're calling a Jamaican citizen chink and dog, fly and drunk, bro? And you are minister of government in which modern democracy could sit in parliament same way. And the prime minister of this country does nothing about it.
Yeah, but I don't see the opposition saying anything either.
There you go.
I don't see the opposition condemning it in a strong way, forceful way, sustained way. I don't see it. So, I mean, when you don't do that, then the person feels empowered to continue. And then at a certain point, that person is going to cross the line where you can't talk to that person again.
Because even today, the Speaker of the House of Representatives said nothing about Mr. Warmington's dirty behavior outside of the parliament as a minister. And he sits in the parliament same way. Is this in Jamaica we're talking about for 2030 vision?
You know, it's beginning more and more to look like a runaway train. That nobody
failing banana state.
Nobody's in control. You know, nobody's in control. Every man, every woman looking out for him or herself. And that they're not talk about what someone else is doing for fear that attention will be focused on them. And what that tells me is that you don't have too many honorable people there. Because and you know what? We call them, think about this. We call our politicians the honorable. What's honorable about what the behavior we just witnessed?
And not only that, Mr. Rattigan, this man have the order of all Jeffrey behave herself, the order of distinction. Either the order of distinction or the order of the nation. Bestowed on him by the government of this country. And he's treating a Jamaican citizen, he treats a Jamaican citizen, and sit in the House of Parliament same way. And the Prime Minister of this country says nothing about it. Shame on you, Prime Minister Andrew Holness. And me must gonna ask up my finger in the ink for these two gang in the House of Parliament.
You'll get 10 grand for do it. And a t-shirt and a 2-piece chicken. You don't like chicken?
No. And 10 grand, you mean 10 million?
Or 5 grand, you get 5 grand.
No, man, you mean 10 million US?
No. Your dream no, man. Wake up. Wake up. No, man. Look, you cannot defend. And maybe that's why nobody's saying anything, you know. Well, actually, you said that you said that most people haven't said anything. Because
the only person from the People's National Party came out and said something.
No, you need
it in spokesperson and transport Michael Phillips.
No, you need it in unison. You need everybody to come out. You need the leader to come out, and then the members to come behind him and come along with him and say, and then you need the government itself to say this is something that we will not tolerate. This is the
same man in Parliament called when Lisa Hanna was government minister. Go away, Jezebel. The same man called Harris Daly Riffraff Daly. The same man look at Anthony Hilton and said to him, "You're only fit for go Riverton dump. You're a quashi liar." And sitting in the House of Parliament.
But let me tell you something. Mark my words. There will come a time that he will regret everything he's done to hurt somebody. Mark my words. Leave him to time and the Almighty. Cannot continue forever. Mark my words. Watch. Just watch. Just watch. It's karma. It's karma. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. The question is this the way he would like to be treated? And guess what? In the fullness of time, he will be justly treated. So,
you know something, Wilfred Rattigan? I said this on my program on Roots FM, and somebody take me on and say I couldn't do a thing. You believe Mr. Big Almighty Everall Warmington with the 9mm inside couldn't speak to me, I mean answer him? But you know, as what Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. And I think that's what Mr. Bell did. Mr. Colin Bell of St. Portland. When Warmington was going in the gutter of Riverton dump that he normally does, the man decided to go high like what Michelle Obama said.
Yeah, somebody just wrote to me, and it's most appropriate. They said that the Prime Minister should have rat on him.
You are so correct.
Should have rat on him, you know. But you know, the Prime Minister tried rat on 200 criminals with them can't find in Jamaica. Look at Jamaica, them can't find top 200, can't find them. But here's a man, this man is doing things right in front of our eyes. We're witnesses. This is not hearsay. We're witnesses to what's going on. And nothing been sent to rein this man in. So the question
I wish I could find the video of him sticking up his fingers like this to journalists. This is not the first time this man do it.
Look, let me tell you something. We're all people. We're all susceptible to making mistakes. He's not indispensable. Well, whatever the number of votes he brings in, whatever the sum of money that he brings in, he's not indispensable.
True.
So, at some point in time, I'm telling you, just mark my words. Mark my words. The Almighty will take care of him as he sees fit. So what we do is we call it as we see it, and we say, we leave it in the hands of the Almighty, because this cannot continue forever.
I'm going to ask you a question, Wilfred Rattigan. You got some information out of the belly of the Jamaica Labour Party that the good gentleman who is the Prime Minister of this country said that not under his watch you will ever get Commissioner of Police. I never hear you comment on it. What is it?
Let me comment now.
Please.
Look, I wasn't there. I was told by someone I know to be in the Prime Minister's circle. I don't know if it's the inner circle, the outer circle, the middle circle, but I know that the Prime Minister knows this man very well. And yes, likewise, he knows him very well.
Rub shoulder to shoulder. Go ahead.
And the man, and in fact, this is a man who used to call me, or usually calls me and say, look, you know, please, whatever you're doing, don't besmirch the Prime Minister's good reputation without cause. Don't listen to hearsay. Don't do this, don't do that. Yeah, so on and so forth. Then he called and he said, listen, the Prime Minister, man, he has it in for you. He's ranting and raving about you. And he's saying that you would never occupy the seat of police commissioner as long as he's Prime Minister. And he went on to describe me using expletives.
Some words that
saying I'm a piece of
Pablos and the cloth.
Yeah, I'm a piece of you know what.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, this was told to me by a member of his circle. Now, my only response to that is, assuming it's true, because of the source, that, you know, I'm kind of surprised that the Prime Minister would seek to besmirch me in that way, seeing that he doesn't want his reputation to be besmirched, and that he would use that kind of language. Because here's how I view it. Once the elections are over, right, whoever occupies the seat of prime minister is my prime minister.
Yes,
your
indeed.
prime minister is the
All of
people
Jamaica's
behind the
prime
prime
minister.
minister.
Yes.
Even if you didn't vote for him, he's your prime minister.
Of course.
He's the prime minister of Jamaica, not the prime minister of his party. And so what we have to do is we're required, we're obligated to support the prime minister and the government. We are, because when we support the government, the prime minister and the government, and they're successful, by extension, we will be successful. A rising tide lifts all ships. But by virtue of being the prime minister doesn't mean that you're immune from criticism. We're all people. We're going to make mistakes, right? You do what you think is in the best interest of the people, but sometimes you miscalculate, right? And so it is incumbent upon us to then say to the prime minister, Mr. Prime Minister, I think you're going in the wrong direction, and here are the reasons why you need to make a change, because people are suffering, sir. And if the prime minister insists on going down that road, then at some point you're just going to have to just call him out. You can't just plead. At some point you're going to have to criticize. And that's why we have this experiment called a democracy.
Indeed.
That's why we have that, so that we can share our views with our leaders, right? And so that's how I view the prime minister. I view him as an intelligent. I view him as a wise.
And a hard-working man can working like Mama P.
Well, yeah, I view him in the best possible light, right? And so it kind of like, I took a step back when I heard, and I was like, well, and then I confirmed it. I that person, I had a conversation a few days later, and the person repeated what he heard. Right?
Let me ask you this question, Ratty. Because you have said it on my program many times, and you have said it privately to me and many phone calls that we have. You said to me, Jeffrey, I have no interest of becoming commissioner of police. At one point, when some student at a high school or a college in Jamaica approach you to do it, you decide, okay, you're going to do it. When the diplomats in wherever who told you to go and do it, you say, okay, you're going to do it. But now you have no interest in doing it. So let the people who are listening and who are viewing, the labor rights who are listening and viewing, let them know that Wilfred Rattigan have no, and let the Prime Minister know, no interest. What you want to do, and you have said it to me personally, is to fight behind the scenes for your people. The people who live behind you in those zinc fences in Waterhouse, where you're from. Likewise me, the people who live in Negril and other places around Jamaica. Those are the people we're fighting for. Wilfred Rattigan is a Labour right or a PNP or a UIC. We're Jamaicans. Our blood, sweat, and tears is in Jamaica. The piece of rock that we call home. We didn't ban Labour right or PNP. As I always said, we came there by Labour plane, not by aeroplane. Wilfred Rattigan answer.
Let me just make it abundantly clear to your listening audience, your viewing audience, as well as the political types, all three parties, UIC, PNP, JLP, that I have absolutely no interest in occupying the seat of Police Commissioner of Jamaica. I once did, and I did primarily because the government of Jamaica asked me to apply twice, and I've applied under both parties leading the government. So the idea that, you know, I have it up for the PNP or I have it up for the JLP is nonsense, because both of them rejected me. In fact, a friend of mine said to me, you've managed to do something that both parties couldn't do themselves, and that's to have an issue that they could unite around, and they united around you because none of them want you. I said to him, yeah, it's fine. Now here's the thing. I have moved on with my life, and there's no turning back. I had made certain adjustments in my life in order to accept the position if it were handed to me, if I were afforded the position. If people said, okay, the Police Services Commission said, yes, we want you, and so we're going to have you. I had made accommodations in my life for that. But time waits on no man. I'm not sitting here waiting, saying I'm waiting for them to give it to me. Life moved on. They moved on. I moved on. And a person once told me, you can't go back. You can't ever go back. All right. And so I have no interest in it. And if the Prime Minister should offer it to me tomorrow, my answer to him would be respectfully, sir, no. However, if you want me to provide guidance to whoever is sitting there, if you want me to introduce him to some of my contacts, my global contacts, if you want me to do certain things, to mentor, to influence, if you want me to do those things, to inspire, I certainly will. If you want me to be a consultant, I certainly will. However, I will become a consultant on one condition, the condition that I'm not paid for my services. I cannot accept money from a country that gave me my foundation. I've always said that. I've always believed it. And I will always live it. If they do decide to hire me as a consultant, I'm going to ask them to take that money and put it into a breakfast program for some school in the inner city, particularly Balmaji Primary School, where I went, or some community program. But don't pay me. And whoever I bring with me to assist in that consultancy, I'm going to insist that they do it on the condition that they're not paid either. So that's my only interest. And that's only if I'm asked. I'm not running for any position. I'm not aspiring for any position. In fact, I'm fine doing this. This is my new passion in life. My new passion is holding government accountable, making sure that government operate in the sunshine, that everything is in the open. They don't hide, they don't cheat, they don't steal, and we hold them accountable. We hold their feet to the fire, like what's going on with my lawsuit against the minister.
Because
make sure.
I was going to touch on that. Is it because maybe you sue Lady Johnson Smith? Why the Prime Minister decide, if he does it, decide to go down the roads of Pablos and Pink's colorful cloths with your name?
Look, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm not going to rule anything out. I'm not going to rule it out. It's a possibility, but I don't know it for a fact. Right? But if that is the reason why he did it, I can understand. I don't agree, but I can understand, because it's come to my attention that she's a very valued member of his inner circle. She's one of his top advisors, and she's considered to be squeaky clean, free from corruption. So I can understand why there would be some, heated feelings about what I'm doing. But keep this in mind, and I say this to everyone. Don't look at my motives, or you can look at my motives if you want. But what I really need you to focus on is this. Am I speaking truth? Did she or didn't she file as required by law? There's a reason why they have that law. And there's a reason why they said people must comply. And the idea that, well, everybody do it and this and that is of no moment to me. And I'll tell you why. You and I were speeding, Jeffrey, down the road. We're driving two separate cars. We're speeding. You doing 100 miles an hour, and I'm doing 95.
What are we driving? Are you driving a Ferrari? Am I driving a Lamborghini?
Why not? Right. And the police, they stopped me. I have no argument. I have none, because the simple fact is that I was speeding. I cannot tell them that Jeffrey was going faster than me, and why did you stop me and not him? Because the question is going to be, you were speeding.
Yes.
Right. So the idea that other people are doing it, what is that? What does that mean? That means that we should continue to let people do it and not enforce the law. Then you might as well repeal the law if that's the case. But you cannot have the law on the books and say, well, we're not going to enforce it because of who the person is. It doesn't matter who the person is. If you're required to do certain things and you didn't do it, then you face the consequences. And we have to start making object lessons out of people so that the people below them will understand that we are serious about controlling corruption, not eradicating corruption, because that is something that's going to be difficult to do in Jamaica. But we are in the process of controlling it. So that, because right now it's running away. Everybody's doing it. It's running. Well, it's not running away. It's run away.
And you know, as this come to me, what is your views of Jamaicans running from Jamaica through to Mexico? I think today the Minister of Foreign Affairs said that they find a Jamaican,
yes,
without any organ on the streets of Mexico, dead. And Jamaicans just leaving. Let me say something this evening before I let Mr. Rattigan answer this question. Jamaicans, I know it is rough, it is tough in our country. But please, for God's sake, do not listen to whosoever is telling you all to come through to Mexico. Right now, the American government is putting down some stiffer sanctions on who come into their countries from the border. Jamaicans, please, in the name of God, do not let your family mourn over you. I know it is rough. I know it is hard. But please, don't go through to Mexico where those cartels use you as guinea pigs and tell you your lies. What is your views on the whole idea of people leaving the country, Mr. Rattigan? A former FBI agent and attorney at law. What is your views on it? What would you say to your fellow Jamaicans at this time when America is changing their immigration laws and policies?
Look, somebody said to me, people no one run away from nothing we're good.
True.
People no run away from nothing we're good. So the fact that you have so many Jamaicans leaving en masse, we're not talking one or two, we're talking thousands leaving. I mean, based on what I'm hearing,
yes,
it tells you that the situation is dire. It tells you that there's a sense of hopelessness. And what it also tells you is that the government doesn't seem to have a handle on how to repair that situation. And there's an argument to be made, and it's been made by some people, that the government is not keen on keeping these people because, you know, it's like a tinderbox is going to explode. So it's almost like a release to let these people go because some of them are criminals. So you go, okay, fine, let them go. And that way we can drive the crime rate down, because once you get rid of the criminals, then you can implement some of the more measured crime fighting techniques because you have fewer people to deal with. I can't sit here and tell you that people shouldn't leave because they know their situation.
True.
You know, they know the hardships they face. And it would be disingenuous for me to tell them, seeing where I am, to tell them, no, stay in Jamaica and deal with your hardships, deal with your unemployment, deal with improper medical care, deal with dilapidated housing, deal with the lack of infrastructure, right? Deal with joblessness or underemployment. It's difficult for me to sit here and do that. At the same time, I'm not going to tell them that they should just get up and leave. And I'm not going to tell them to say, you have to make your own decision based on your particular circumstances. And no matter what I say, if people tomorrow feel like leaving, they are going to leave. And they're going to leave simply because the situation is untenable. They cannot prosper They've heard the term prosperity, but the prosperity that they're thinking, it's somewhere else. It's not in Jamaica. And so it's hard for me to tell people to stay or go. It's sad because, like you said, they found this gentleman dead, and you mentioned his organs.
Yes.
And God knows how many people that that have fallen to this type of barbarity. This barbaric action of just cutting out people, taking their organs. How many people have actually succumbed to this? We don't know. The question though, that really should be asking the government is, do we want to know? I don't think they want to know.
And I've often said this though, Wilfred Rattigan, that when a government can't provide health care, jobs, security, education, and the five one, I can't remember the fifth one. But when it can't provide those four basic needs for your people, something is fundamentally wrong with the governing of the country. And the same way, they can give the Chinese so much acres of land, beachfront land, all in the name of building highways, that killing off people. Why can't you say to the Chinese, build some factories for our people? Build me some factories, some free zones. Do something to let the people stay in the country, at least have something doing.
You know why? Because a lot of the people in power, they never truly experience poverty. They never truly experience homelessness. They never truly experience some of the things that I experienced, right? And a lot of people I know experience, because I'm not making myself out to be special, like I'm the only one who did this. There are lots of people I grew up with who had it more difficult than me. I had it difficult, but there are people there who had it more difficult than me. And because you don't have that, it's hard for you to attach a sense of compassion to what you're doing, because you said the word compassion, but do you really feel it? See, compassion is not only something that you do, it's something that you feel, right? And if you don't feel it, then whatever you do is just perfunctory. You just do it and you just move on. It's a token thing. It's not a sustainable thing. For me, passion is sustainable. I feel passionate about poor people getting their just due from the government.
Yes.
I'm very, very passionate about that. And that's because I'm attached to it. So when I talk, people don't question the authenticity. Or they shouldn't, because if they want, I can take them and show them where I'm from. And I can tell them my story. And I can tell you that unless you come from the ghetto, it's hard to really understand in a comprehensive way. You'll understand it, but there's a greater sense of understanding when you have been in that position. You can identify with it. But there are exceptions, because I know some people, and I know one of them is listening to us right now, and there's a big difference there between and she grew up privileged, right? But there's a big difference there. Some people, they'll understand, but for the most part, they won't, unless they're being in your situation. And so that's where my passion is. So going back to the question about whether or not I want to be the police commissioner, I would tell the Prime Minister that, Mr. Prime Minister, please listen to me. Let me debunk this idea that I still aspire to become the police commissioner. And let me disabuse anyone who has that notion, that I do not. Sincerely, I do not. This is my calling now, holding the government responsible. From the outside, I'm under no pressure. No. Not that I would be under any pressure sitting there, but I could see where there would be resistance regarding some of the things
or maybe we should ask the question of the Prime Minister, the goodly Prime Minister. who they said that he said such colorful pablos and pink cloth that why you laughing at me, Wilfred Rattigan? that you know, is it that you're afraid of a Wilfred Rattigan coming in to dig up some nastiness is going on within the Parliament, Jamaica House, King's House, and No House? Is that you're afraid of that, Prime Minister?
Let me just say that the JCF, despite the deficiencies, and there are deficiencies, despite the shortcomings, they have some very committed, loyal, qualified people to lead that organization. And I'm not talking about JDF doing that military experiment. This is the third time they've done it, and each time the failure is more colossal, right? Not talking about a JDF experiment with the JCF. I'm talking about using JCF people who have come up through the ranks to lead that organization. They have.
I want you to answer this question.
I'll answer the question. I don't know if the audience can see it. Can they see it?
I think they can. Yes.
It says, Mr. Rattigan, do you worry about your safety? These guys will do dirty things. I have no doubt. Let me just say that, and then I'll answer the second question. Let me just say that no one has threatened me. I hope that no one threatens me. But should there come a day, should there come a time when someone threatens me, I know exactly what to do. And I won't hesitate to do it. And there's a lot I can do. There's a lot I can do.
I want you
know, somebody said, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said to them, they were like, well, you know, I asked them, what would you be willing to die for? And they really couldn't answer. And I said, you know, it's been said that if you don't have a reason, if you don't have an issue that you're willing to die for, it's been said that you don't have a reason to live. If you don't have a reason to die, if you don't have an issue that you could, whether it's your family, whether it's your religion, whether it's your party or what, but if you don't have something in your life that you're passionate about, that you say, I'm willing to die for this, then they said, you don't have any reason to live.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that question now, because I will say this publicly. I have been threatened more than once because of this that I am doing. And I ignored it. And somebody within my family called me and told me point blank, don't ignore these things. And I said, you know what? I have a God that I serve. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was thrown in the flame of fire. And not one single hair on their body was burned. And I lived knowing that I have a God. I was brought up in Negril by my godmother and my grandmother. My two aunties that I love dearly. I love my family dearly. But I have two aunties that I love dearly on my mother's side. Maria and Juliet. That I love dearly. And my auntie who died a couple of days ago. May God rest her soul. Whenever I cry, she was the one who put a bottle of cornmeal porridge in my mouth to shut me up. That's why I'm so big and fat. You see? I am willing to die for my family. First, I'm willing to die for my God, who brought me here. For my family, and for what I'm doing, to speak out for the fundamental God-given rights of my fellow Jamaicans. So, you know, people may say things and people throw things and people criticize. You know, I grew up in a home, you know, criticize all you want. People align me with a political party because my name is a Tavares. That's your business. That's your business. I know where I stand.
Look,
ahead, Wilfred.
Here's what I tell people who disagree with me. I tell them, look, let's sit down and have a conversation, a civil conversation about your disagreement with me. Because in that engagement, I may be able to change your mind, or you may be able to change my mind, or
True.
we may still walk away holding our positions. But at least we've had the opportunity to listen to each other carefully and to try and understand what each person is saying. Because a lot of times what we do is we wait to speak. We don't listen. We wait to speak. So somebody's trying to explain something to you, and in your mind, you already have your ideas. You're not listening to the person. You're just waiting for a moment so that you can unload on that person. And what I tell people is try to listen and then speak. Don't just sit there and just wait to speak. Because if you wait to speak, you're not going to hear what this person is trying to communicate to you. And you're going to miss the point completely. And we cannot have a civil discussion that way. We have to listen to each other, and we have to come to terms. And if we disagree in the end, then that's fine. I also tell people, if I'm presenting a set of facts, don't yell at me, don't scream at me. I'm not a shy person, but sometimes you hurt my feelings when you yell and you scream. So I said to them, no. If I'm presenting a set of facts, take everything that you know about me or you perceive about me, put it to the side, and then look at what I'm presenting. Because if what I'm presenting is uncontrovertible, then this over here, this has no bearing on what I just told you. For example, when I say to you that I have a document from the government of Jamaica saying that the Honorable Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith did not file as required by law with the ministry, by law and government regulations with the Ministry of Finance. That is a fact. So when you come and you say, well, because I never get the job, why am I do this? Bear with me. I tell them, just put that. Yeah, I didn't get the job. That's true. I'll readily admit that. But just put that to the side and just look at what I'm presenting to you. And if it makes sense, then you have to admit that what I'm saying is correct. She did not file. Now, when you talk about motives, I tell them, ask yourself this question: is Jamaica a corrupt society? The answer is going to be yes. Do you talk about it? Yes. Would you like to see something done about it? Yes. Well, here it is. I'm doing something about it. I said, you have to start someplace.
We are enlightening the people about what is going on. And that is why I keep on saying to my fellow Jamaicans that you can criticize me and Wilfred Rattigan and Wayne Lonesome and others all you want. Do it. I mean, you have a right to criticize. I'm working on that. I'm working on a telephone that you all can call in. I don't want to give up my personal number, but I am working on that because I have to get a piece of equipment to allow people to call into the program. And I'm working on that in short order. And let me make this clear that I grew up in a home, a very stern Christian home. And we have members of our family who may be involved in politics. We have never take side. One thing I can tell you about our family is that we don't talk about politics in our home. I have an auntie who is on the chat here with us, and she can verify it. We don't chat about politics in our home. Whosoever is in politics, that's their business. What we speak about, and if you have a party that you cannot say to them what you're going on is wrong. The same way if Wilfred Rattigan can't tell me Jeffrey Tavares, who I consider Wilfred Rattigan as a friend and as a brother, if he can't tell me that I am wrong, then he's not my friend. And if you can't tell your political party where they're going wrong, then it's best you leave. If you're going to sit down and see that your party is milking a country, selling the country bit by bit, back by back, and you says nothing about it, leave Prince Andrew alone, leave Marky G alone and all those bloody nonsense when the country is going down a slippery slope. We're becoming like a banana republic. And we sit down in this country and accept what is going on. Because what, we are PNP, we are JLP, or we are UIC. And by the way, UIC, them not going to know either. Because the owner of the chairman out of UIC can't tell the people of this country the name of a state of candidates. So why should I go and vote for somebody like that? Why should I go and join an organization where you can't tell me the name of your candidates? Huh? We must join in and tell us that we're going to run. Listen to me, we have some dark days in this country, you know. Because who not scam the milk and who not milk the scam? Ratty?
You know, we need to do away with legacy votes, and when I say do away with voters, mean that we need to stop and think about voting for a particular party because your grandfather and your father voted for that party. We need to do away with that. What we need to do is look at the issues and look at who is our representative. And then you vote accordingly. Look at what they've done for you. Because, and by the way, let me just throw this out to people that people, when they accuse me of being a PNP or this or that, in fact, it's funny because I've heard people describe me as being a JLP, and I've heard people describe me as being a PNP. And that's a good place to be when nobody knows where you are. Them just start guess all over the place.
Well, my name is a Tavares, so they say me a labor, right?
Well, let me just say to people listening tonight, I'm neither. I don't care about politics, politicians, and you know, that kind of things where there's political alignment. I care about people and policies. That's what I care about. And I'll tell you why. Before I left Jamaica when I was 17. I couldn't vote, never voted in Jamaica. And in those 17 years, I moved about 14 times, right? And I've lived in JLP stronghold. I lived in the current prime minister's constituency. I live there. I live in a place in a constituency over the tower named Compound. I live over there. That's a JLP stronghold, right? And I've lived in PNP stronghold. And from what I've seen, for the most part, those people are disenfranchised. They're not counted in the scheme of things, except for the vote. I've been to some places where there have been no change whatsoever in the social, economic circumstances of those people, except in some cases, it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. And so I am all about empowering those people, talking to politicians, getting them to do stuff, getting the people united, you know, have them coalesce around an issue, revitalize, rejuvenate them. Those are the sort of things that I would like to see done so that you hold the politician responsible, because at the end of the day, they work for you. And we have to change the mindset that somehow they're seen as, you know, more important than you, like a demigod. We need to get rid of that. He works for you, or she works for you. You are their boss. And until we get to that, until we change our mindset to start thinking in those terms, we're going to have problems. We're going to have problems. But I'm thankful and I'm hopeful because of programs like this. Because for the first time in the history of Jamaica, we now have an outlet that we can actually talk to our people. And we're talking, and when I say talking to our people, I really mean it. We're talking not just to Jamaicans, but we're talking to Jamaicans who are similarly situated to what we were, or what I was, right? Like, so I can identify with them. I speak the language. I know the culture. I know the suffering. I know the challenges. And through the grace of God, good parents, vibrant community, teachers, and so on and so forth, I am where I am. So I would like to give back. That's what I'd like to do. You know, the Prime Minister talked about legacy. The Prime Minister could be my son. And he's talking about legacy. I should be talking about legacy.
Hold on there, Ratty. Where is it a while ago?
The Prime Minister, when was he born?
In 73 or 74, I think.
Yeah. If he was born in 74, the Prime Minister could be my son.
So you're in your 60s?
Indeed.
You don't look like in your 60s at all, my brother. That's why, anyway, Jeffrey shut him out.
The Prime Minister could have been my son.
I never know.
Right? Yeah. And so, you know, I don't expect him to talk to me as an elder. But what I do expect is that at some point, he and I, we reasoned already, you know, for 2.5 hours. We sat down and we talked. I don't know, based on what's going on now, if you would be so inclined, but that's okay. Life goes on, you know. And how I approach life is simply this. Simply this way. I don't pay attention to the side mirrors, and I don't pay attention to the rearview mirror. I just pay attention to what's going on in front of me. So I look through the windshield. That's all I do. I don't get distracted, or I try not to get distracted, because once you get distracted and take your eyes off the road, that's when you have collisions. And so I'm not prepared for that. I'm prepared to keep my eyes. You have a plan and you just keep moving forward. So that's who I am. And people, and I accept it that people are going to love me to death. And I also accept it that people are going to hate me like a dose of poison because of the mindset. And I can live with that. But while I'm living with it, I'm reaching out to those people. I'm saying, listen, regardless of how you feel about me, let's sit down and talk. Let's sit down and talk. Because if you get to know me, maybe you won't have that feeling. So that's who I am.
And on that note, we're going to say good night.
Yes, brethren.
Because we have been on it from about 7 o'clock this evening.
Time flies when you're talking good stuff, man.
Yes. We can go on another hour if you want, you know.
No, I'm gonna get some food.
We gotta get some food to eat, eh?
Yeah.
Mr. Rattigan. I'm not gonna say Mr. Rattigan. Anyway, Mr. Rattigan.
You see,
oh Lord.
You don't know you treat me like how you signal the plane. That's what I drive the Jeep, you know.
Why don't we Hermes?
I remember if he's watching, no, I know he's laughing.
You know something, Will, we love our country. Good night to you, Auntie. Love you. My auntie from Canada is watching and she's saying good night to everyone.
Good night, Auntie.
There she is. Good night to you, Auntie. Love you. You know something, Will? We both love this nation of ours. And we both love our people. We don't take political lines and say we are PNP or JP. We speak up for the fundamental rights of our people and for what is going on in our country. And I pray to God that the day will come when every Jamaican will stand up, not for a party, not for an individual, but for this rock. Jamaica is crying. She's bleeding from within. And those of us who has the privilege to live a life where may not be a rich life, but a life where you can afford basic foods. But other people are running away because of they can't find a job, they don't know where to turn. We need to stand up for this piece of rock. We need to fight. Because Jamaica must not and will not become the next Haiti of the Caribbean. A lot of people say to me, Jeffrey, you must stop saying, but the way how I see this country going, we're knocking behind the back door of our sister island. Politicians has raped the economy of that sister island of ours. And they're doing the same thing in this country of ours. They're selling out this country bit by bit, day by day. And the question was asked ourselves or asked them, have they sold every single Jamaican citizens to foreign power? That's what the question was asked them. I say this to say to you all tonight that let us stand up. And for those who may call us other names, the time has come for you to look within yourself and ask yourself, when I was born I born a PNP or a JLP, or was I born a Jamaican? That's the question you must ask yourself. And that's what I leave with you all tonight. Mr. Rattigan, if you have anything else to say before we go, sir?
No, just no. Thanks for having me on. As usual, it's a learning experience. I try to impart some knowledge, and at the same time, I absorb what's being said. And the good doc came on talking about the beach stuff, and then he forced me to go look at some of the regulations, and I started seeing them in a different light. And then we started just basically freestyling, you and I. And I hope people got a chance to kind of see a side of me that they haven't seen. And I'm always open to criticism, and I'm always open to a discussion. I don't shy away from those things, and because it's only through that interaction will we truly achieve some sense of knowledge about the other person, and hopefully we can knock down the fences, knock down the barriers, and become one. Because at the end of the day, we're all Jamaicans. Whether you come from Negril, Waterhouse, Rockfort, back to Tiva, it doesn't matter where. We're all one Jamaica. We're a unique species. We are a proud people. We're a blessed people. But we just need to find our way at this time. Just need to find our way. And once we can get people, once we can see that light and we can start moving towards that and unite, Jamaica is gonna be a powerhouse. Right now, Jamaica punches above its weight for that small little piece of rock. Right? 4,000 plus square miles. Less than 45, less than 4,500 square miles, right? Less than 3 million people. And almost everywhere I've been around the world, I've met a Jamaican, or I've met the Jamaican culture. I was in Hungary. Never met any Jamaican in Hungary, any Jamaicans in Hungary. But I went to a restaurant, and when we look on the menu, we say Jamaican pepper pot soup. Eastern Europe, basically. I'm going to go see that. And everywhere else I've been, Jamaicans, we just all over the place. We lick about with Talawa. And if we could just harness the power of unity, just think about what that country could do. If we could just go back and occupy spaces that we can help to develop the country in line of 2030, but even beyond 2030. Just think about that. We have so much talent. And I'm not just talking about talent on the track or on the cricket pitch or on the football field. No, I'm talking about this brain power. And what's happening is that the brain power that should be used to develop Jamaica is being used to develop a whole bunch of countries around the globe. Whole bunch of countries around the globe. Unity, my people. That's what we need. We need to start thinking about it in those terms. And if there's one issue that unites us, well, we have lots. The beach issue.
Yes.
All the politicians accountable. Every Jamaican must have the unfettered and the general access to beaches. It should be our God-given right, and it should be enshrined in the new constitution. So having said that, Jeffrey, thank you again for having me on. Thank you for the listening audience, and I'm always available.
Thank you, my brother. Before we go, I must say this, my auntie who is on here has a cooking channel on YouTube. My God, I don't remember the cooking channel name. Auntie, if you're still online, my dear auntie, could you put the cooking channel name on the chat room that people can go there, like, share, and subscribe, and watch her make some Jamaican dishes? She also has, I think, is a baking area on the cooking channel where she bake and she ship around Canada and maybe United States too. If you need some Jamaican drops or Jamaican grate, a cake or something, she has a channel on YouTube. I don't remember the name of it. That you can go there and like, share, and subscribe. This is where I say so long from here, but before I go, I have to say this to you all. For all those cares have been our concern. The work goes on, the cause endure. The hope still lives, and the dream for a better Jamaica shall never die. May God bless you. May God bless you. May God bless Jamaica, land we love. And may our people stand up. May our people stand up for what we believe in.
Oh.
And may our people stand up for Jamaica, land we love. Because anywhere in the world I go, I am a Jamaican. Wilfred Rattigan, have a good night, my friend.
Likewise, my brother. Take care. Be well.
Yes. We're going to say goodbye with our team song and our sponsors for this program. Who has sponsored this program for us?
Do you need graphic design services? Or maybe you need branding for your business? How about multimedia production services? Contact Browns Media and Graphics at 876-877-1870. Browns Media and Graphics, developing your ideas, creating your style.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.
Do you need graphic design services? Or maybe you need branding for your business? How about multimedia production services? Contact Browns Media and Graphics at 876-877-1870. Browns Media and Graphics, developing your ideas, creating your style.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.